The young man was named Eugene Lionheart. 300 years ago, he had teamed up with 4 others to defeat the Demon King. They were the foolish Vermut, the annoying Sena, the scheming Ennis, and the idiot Moran, as well as the great Hermod. Back then, I still had handsome red hair, not this stupid white hair like now. We fought our way into the Demon King's castle and took down 3 of the 5 Demon Kings. However, it was all because Vermut foolishly charged ahead alone, without noticing the Demon General's sneak attack. At the critical moment, Hermod stepped forward to shield him from the fatal blow. Though Vermut seized the opportunity to slay the Demon General, Hermod was beyond saving. On his deathbed, he begged his good buddy to definitely kill the Demon King. I swore in the name of a hero that I would defeat all the Demon Kings. Finally, turning to Sena, I said, "Actually, I've liked you for a long time." I never said those words at all. Which idiot wrote this fairy tale book anyway? Was he beaten up by me 300 years ago? I really want to send him razor blades. The original 4 never could have imagined that the deceased Hermod would be reborn with his memories intact, and be reborn as Eugene, the descendant of the hero Vermut. Eugene gazed at the photo on the wall. Sena later became the youngest Tower Master. Ennis also became the saint of the Holy Empire, and Morin even established his own kingdom, while Vermut had always been revered by the world as a hero, and married 36 wives. How did we not see back then that this guy was such a womanizer? But why was the Demon King still alive and well? Hermod had died in battle at the Demon King's sealed castle. After that, Vermut made a pact with the Demon King, ending the war with the Demon King. Until today, 300 years later, the world remained peaceful. Why did Vermut make a contract with the Demon King? What was he thinking? The young man was all muscle. Even his father was afraid when he saw him. If he weren't getting old and losing his strength, he would surely train hard again to become powerful. Here, Eugene once again destroyed a wooden dummy. He couldn't help but feel annoyed. The village carpenter must have had a black heart, selling such shoddy stuff. He really should be dragged out and beaten. But tomorrow was the coming-of-age ceremony, so he wouldn't need them anymore. At this moment, his father looked worried, because during the coming-of-age ceremony, children aged 10 to 15 would gather at the main house, and through duels, select the strongest one. But branch families were different from the direct line. Branch families couldn't use real swords before the coming-of-age ceremony, and couldn't practice magic either. Thinking about this made Eugene angry. Being reborn as his good buddy's grandson was one thing, but having to follow these garbage rules too. If his good buddy's still alive, he'd definitely drag him out for a beating too. Vermut, let me take a good look at whether your grandsons can take a punch. The next day, Eugene arrived at the main house. The vast Reinhardt castle had only one servant cleaning. That's right, how could there be a welcome ceremony? Meanwhile, only direct members of the Reinhardt family could wear the lion emblem on their left chest. However, what Eugene never expected was that the main house had arranged such a beautiful maid for him. Shake the bell, and she could appear at any time. This made me really envious. Who wouldn't envy a life where servants did everything? But the scheming Eugene didn't think so. He knew that if he made any improper moves, he would definitely be severely punished by the main house. Besides, he was only 13 years old. Bored Eugene immediately expressed his desire to check out the training ground. Even with 500 pounds of weight strapped on, he could still thrust his spear like a dragon. In his previous life as Hermod, he had never slacked off in training. After rebirth, he had never been lazy either. Even when exhausted, he would train with all his might. It had to be said that Vermut's bloodline was incredibly good beyond imagination. The little maid beside him was extremely surprised. She couldn't believe this was just a 13-year-old boy. Just then, the main house's twin siblings Stein and Stair suddenly approached, asking the maid what Eugene was doing. Eugene also noticed the situation here. Can't they tell? Their intelligence is really worrying. The arrogant young master of the main house had never been ignored before. He immediately shouted for Eugene to apologize. But what he didn't expect was that Eugene was extraordinarily agreeable. "I'm sorry." This completely confused Stein. He didn't know whether to be angry or not, but under the guidance of Stair, he quickly came to his senses. Then he demanded that Eugene kowtow in apology. Eugene sighed helplessly. Is this really necessary? At this moment, Stein noticed a wooden sword on the ground beside them. He picked up the wooden sword and shouted at Eugene, "I challenge you to a duel, out of kindness." Eugene reminded Stein not to casually speak of duels, but Stein naturally interpreted this as Eugene being scared. Then, "Hurry up and clean the carriage you sat in. The cow dung smell from your body got on the cushions." Eugene's face darkened. "You ignorant little brat, let me teach you a lesson." He then removed the sandbag from his arm. The heavy sandbag smashed a 5-meter deep crater in the ground. Seeing this, Stein was completely dumbfounded. He immediately wanted to say this might be a misunderstanding, but with his sister watching, he couldn't bring himself to speak. Eugene threw the other sandbag aside, then said, "Throw out your handkerchief, young man." Eugene immediately launched an attack on Stein. Poor Stein directly vomited acid. He was sent flying 2 miles away on the spot. He never expected Eugene to be so dishonorable. He had just thrown out his handkerchief when Eugene attacked. Stair quickly ran over to check on her brother, but before she could get close, she was forced to stop by the vomit he spewed. She could only turn around angrily and glare at Eugene, but she couldn't do anything about Eugene either, because the moment the handkerchief was thrown out, the duel had begun. She could only blame the arrogant young master for his inexperience. Although Stein instinctively retreated to weaken the attack, he was still sent flying by Eugene's single strike, even if there was still much room for growth in the future. As Vermut's descendant, he was not qualified. On the other side, Stein also staggered to his feet. The vomit on his mouth hadn't been cleaned yet, but he looked at Eugene with stubborn little eyes. Seeing Stein's pitiful state, Eugene couldn't help but wonder if he had been a little too harsh. At this moment, a man hurried over. Seeing the newcomer, Stein immediately threw himself into his arms and cried. His tears flowed wildly. The newcomer was Stein's instructor, Hyzar. After understanding what had happened, he helped Stein bow respectfully to Eugene in apology, then quickly took Stein away to check his injuries. The scene changed. Eugene was enjoying the aristocratic life. The little maid beside him took out a small notebook to report the situation. She said, "The other young masters and misses will arrive one after another before tomorrow evening." But Eugene didn't know that he had already been targeted by a scheming old aunt. She was the second wife of the main house. She absolutely could not accept her child losing to a branch family member in a duel, and could not accept the mockery of other wives, so she directly slapped Stein. If Hyzar wasn't a knight favored by the family head, she would even want to kill him, let alone Eugene. But killing Eugene now would definitely arouse suspicion. She could only arrange for the scheming stare to approach Eugene. First build a relationship and then look for opportunities. That's why you should never marry too many wives. You never know when one might turn evil. Friends, this is an important point to note. The next morning, training maniac Eugene was doing his usual weighted run. Who knew the cute little maid would stop him? It turned out the family head had suddenly returned. She didn't know whether to let Eugene go greet him first or change clothes. Her flustered state was rather cute. Moments later, everyone gathered at the castle entrance to wait. In the front row was the first wife, Taos. Next to her was the main house's eldest son, Lyde. Then came the twin siblings and the second wife, with the sound of carriage wheels. Family head Eugene Lionheart returned, who knew the first thing he wanted to do was to have dinner with all the children. What was he planning to do? Quickly they went to the dinner. The bloodline ceremony was a traditional ritual to protect the main house's interests. Branch families couldn't practice magic before the ceremony, and couldn't use weapons either, so for all these years, they had never beaten the main house. But the family head decided to change the usual duel format, so he invited outside help, Reborn, from the Red Tower of Yarao, who was a disciple of Sena. This ceremony would be an adventure in a maze he created, entering from different entrances. Reaching the center and defeating the monster leader would mean victory, and the winner could choose any treasure from the main house treasury. Of course, it was all magical fantasy, but it would feel very real. Eugene had seen plenty of monsters like this. He was immediately filled with confidence. This treasure was basically a freebie for him, but it was still better to be cautious. After dinner, Eugene was blocked by a muscular man. The next second, he was actually beaten up. He thought being 15 and looking like this made him impressive. Little did he know Eugene was not easy to bully. Kagus was still performing by himself. He said, "The reason I have so many muscles is because I use secret sauce. Men and women all scream when they see me. For just $9.99, you can have it too." At this moment, another voice sounded, "Are you an idiot? Eating sauce will lower your intelligence. He only had muscles in his brain. We just want to ally with you." Saying this, Desara threw the spear in her hand toward Eugene. Wanting to have a duel with Eugene, she said, "Of course, provided you really have the strength." Eugene thought, "Let me test Desara's strength first." Under the big cousin's proper gestures, the match officially began. Desara decisively attacked first. However, in the next instant, she urgently stopped. Eugene's unconsciously released overwhelming aura made her feel suffocated. His entire body had no flaws, she couldn't find an opening. Eugene said, "Hurry up, I'm in a rush." Feeling underestimated, Desara could only grit her teeth and attack. But no matter how fierce her attacks were, Eugene could easily neutralize them. Not only was he untouched, he didn't even move his feet. Eugene didn't forget to mock her. The angry Desara held nothing back. Suddenly, countless spear shadows appeared. In an instant, the two exchanged over 300 moves. Suddenly, Desara's figure mysteriously disappeared. She had flashed behind Eugene. She thrust her spear straight at Eugene. Then, yes, Desara's spear was stepped on by Eugene. The kind where she couldn't pull it out no matter how hard she tried. The match ended so suddenly. Big cousin was shocked watching this. Meanwhile, the second wife was eyeing Eugene. But Eugene wasn't scared at all, because Eugene had no idea about this. Though the second wife was broad-minded, her heart was dark. She had always harbored resentment about Stein losing to Eugene. Finally, she thought of a solution. If everyone got crushed by Eugene, then who would dare say her child was no good? Wouldn't everyone be happy? On the other side, Eugene was still being pestered by his muscular big cousin. He and Desara cornered Eugene in bed, following the principle of, if you can't beat them, join them. They insisted on teaming up with Eugene, but Eugene said he could kill his way through alone. The scene was somewhat awkward. 3 days later, 9 chosen children gathered before the maze entrance. On site, Reborn demonstrated condensing magic power, which could actually be released outward. The children looked at the magic power in their hands with great curiosity. As long as there was light in their hearts, they could manifest what they desired. The first to summon a weapon was Stare. The sword flowers she casually released could tear through the air. Big cousin followed closely behind. It was very much in line with his style. Next came Desara. who was skilled with spears, and the arrogant Stein. The eldest son Lyde continued to be depressed, because since childhood he only liked reading and magic. The warrior position made him unable to breathe. Then came the nameless trio making up the numbers. Finally, there was Eugene's standard sword and shield combination. Stair said, "Hey Eugene, if we meet in the maze, will you attack me?" Eugene quickly asked the family head. The family head said, "You can compete or cooperate. After all, we all bear the Reinhardt name, we're family." Hearing the word family, Stair's face inexplicably turned red. Then she showed a meaningful smile. Eugene couldn't understand her smile. At this moment, Rolly-Bion took out the magic necklace again. This necklace was used to sense the young people's physical condition. If they suffered too much mental pressure, the necklace would sound an alarm. Rolly-Bion would immediately appear and terminate the assessment. The prepared youngsters began entering the maze one by one. Stair didn't forget to cheer Eugene on. Though everyone entered from the same entrance, they would be teleported to different locations the moment they entered. Eugene couldn't help but recall scenes of adventuring with his companions in his previous life. He was already tired of mazes, so now, it was time to show real skill. His opponent was a goblin. However, seeing the goblin made Eugene's legs feel a bit weak. The goblin didn't care about that and immediately attacked. Eugene raised his sword to block this strike, then cut off the goblin's head with one sword. Big Cousin was also completely fearless. He raised his sword and charged at the goblin. The goblin was scared by his momentum, but Big Cousin's sword strike missed. However, no matter what stood in front of him, Big Cousin wasn't afraid. He directly killed several goblins with one sword. Both of them had successfully passed the test. On the other side, the trio making up numbers had already been eliminated. What eliminated them were slimes. They were ferocious and terrifying, and their next opponent was the spear-skilled Dazara. Dazara moved and dodged skillfully. She found the right moment and struck accurately. Too bad they had physical immunity. Dazara could only flee helplessly. The arrogant young master's luck was very good. This mechanism was designed as if afraid people couldn't see it. He tried with a stone, sure enough, as expected, but Stein was still pleased with himself, thinking his previous homework had paid off. Stair also faced goblins. The goblin directly launched an attack, but was dodged by Stair's sidestep. Stair then thrust her sword at the goblin. The goblin was killed on the spot. It was just child's play, but as she walked, she reached a dead end. She seemed to be lost. At this moment, the two examiners were leisurely drinking coffee. Rolly-Bion said, "Lyde seems very interested in magic." Guyard couldn't help but fall into reminiscence. Lyde had loved magic since childhood. Unfortunately, his mother wanted him to become the family head, so he gave up halfway. Compared to the hero Vermut, Lyde revered the wise Sena more. If he really has the talent, I would take him as my disciple. At this moment, Guyard suddenly exclaimed, pointing ahead in amazement. Eugene had encountered a troll. The troll raised its fist and smashed down without warning. Eugene had already blocked accordingly. When the troll showed the recovery time after its attack, Eugene seized the opportunity and launched a fierce assault. There was no fear in his eyes. Rolly-Bion said, "Is Eugene cheating?" Guyard said, "This troll isn't some trash monster you hired, is it?" Eugene didn't know how much his fighting power shocked the two examiners. To him, this was merely a warm-up. Actually, Rolly-Bion's original intention in placing the troll was just to train them to flee when they saw an opportunity. He never thought it would be defeated by Eugene. Only a genius could easily defeat a troll at this age. Of course, it could also be a reckless fool. The word flee simply didn't exist in Big Cousin's dictionary. He might not even have a dictionary in his brain, or maybe no brain at all. He directly charged at the troll. Every strike hit its mark. The troll fell to the ground. Big Cousin immediately leaped up and thrust his sword into the troll's body. Though he defeated the troll, Big Cousin had also reached his limit. Not only was his back full of projectiles, but 48 of his ribs were broken. He said, "I can't fall here. I'm just tired. Let me sleep for a while." On the other side, Stein also encountered a troll. Fortunately, he had the stone that had worked before, using stone reconnaissance. Again, would that work? Sure enough, big guys have no brains. Stein thought he was too smart, and he was lucky enough to meet Stair. This meant they weren't far from the maze center. Stein quickly volunteered to scout ahead, having lost face in front of Stair because of Eugene before. This time he must restore his dignity and show his prowess. Thinking of this, his eyes even glowed. Stair said, "Brother, since the maze is all illusion, do you think there might be ghosts?" Hearing this, Stein couldn't help but swallow, then said, "Impossible." But he didn't know that the moment he turned around, a pale hand suddenly reached out. The next second, a blood-covered figure instantly appeared, startling Stein greatly. It turned out to be the spear-skilled Dazara. She was covered in blood, almost making Stein cry, and making him lose face in front of his sister again. He had to catch her. The helpless Dazara really missed Big Cousin at this moment. Unfortunately, Big Cousin was still sleeping, but just as she was distracted, the ground suddenly collapsed. Too bad she didn't fall down. Stein looked at the pit in front of him and wanted to go around, but thinking of his sister's admiring gaze, he decided not to conserve magic power anymore. He directly activated Sprint. leaped up, and barely reached the other side. Turning around to help his sister, who would have thought Stair looked relaxed, and leaped over lightly. The scene immediately became awkward. Stein said, "Dazara, you can't escape. Today I must subdue you." The scene changed. The three had actually chased all the way to the maze center. Dazara said, "Such a big minotaur. Are you sure it's for trials?" Eugene said, "How did you three come together?" Eugene had arrived first. To give the other children a sense of participation, Eugene deliberately left the boss for them to fight first. Such thoughtful consideration. "So let's start the fight in order of arrival." Dazara said, "Doesn't your conscience hurt?" Eugene said, "If you're scared, just stand aside." The stubborn Dazara wouldn't give up easily. She wiped the blood from her face and walked firmly toward the monster. At this moment, the arrogant young master said, if they followed this order, Eugene wouldn't get a chance to fight the monster. Eugene said, "If you win, I'll call you Big Brother for life." Happiness came so suddenly. "Little brother, watch how brother shows his strength later." As Dazara approached, the troll also opened its eyes, even though fear remained in her heart. The stubborn girl still charged forward with her spear. The moment the troll's palm fell, she spun once and easily dodged. Then she spun again and again to steady herself, then thrust her spear at the monster. However, she couldn't pierce the monster's skin. Dazara was stunned. Before Dazara could react, she was directly grabbed into the troll's palm, but she wasn't crushed. The monster directly threw her out. Dazara flew straight back to the starting point. She was completely outmatched. Stair said, "Why did the troll throw her out?" Eugene said, "Because the winner was already decided the moment she was caught." The next contestant, Stein, consciously stood up, not forgetting to glance at Eugene with arrogant little eyes. Though Eugene didn't speak, his expression said everything. Stein thought, "Damn, Eugene is so infuriating. Open your eyes wide and watch carefully." Stein actually concentrated all his magic power into his sword, a real glowing great sword. Though his sword aura couldn't last long, he was confident it was enough to eliminate the monster. However, the next second, the sword aura disappeared. Stein couldn't believe it at all. It turned out the family head wanted to understand all the children's talents, so magic attacks couldn't be used in this maze. Stein was still standing there looking fierce. Eugene said, "If you're afraid of losing, hurry back." The arrogant young master was now in a real dilemma. He said, "Don't look down on me. Even without sword aura, I'll still be your big brother." Seeing this, the monster directly reached out to grab him. Unfortunately, it missed and was scratched on the arm by his sword. Stein then showed off his moves with dodges and turns, but they were all like scratches, useless. What move is most effective against plot monsters? Of course, cutting tendons and feet. Stein thought he had found an opportunity, but was sent flying by the troll's knee. Stein was shocked. Is this a move a cow brain could think of? The monster also seamlessly grabbed him in its hand, then threw him back. Unfortunately, he didn't land face first. Eugene said, "How come you don't last long? You came back so quickly." At this moment, Eugene signaled for Stair to go up, but Stair directly forfeited. So sad, couldn't see the beautiful girl fly. Having waited long enough, Eugene decided to end this farce. Since everyone had shown their presence, it was time to hurry home for dinner. As Eugene approached, the monster also prepared for battle. Where should I start cutting? At this moment, the monster's fist was already coming, but Eugene dodged it. Eugene also began his attack, avoiding its hand, using the momentum to his advantage. He leaped to the top of the monster's head and steadied himself. The monster threw a punch at Eugene on its head. Eugene dodged in time, and this punch hit the monster hard in the face. Its already dim brain became even dimmer. Seizing the opportunity, Eugene launched his offensive, instantly splitting into several afterimages, extreme ghost sword technique, storm style. Everyone was stunned. Impossible, absolutely impossible. He was attacking the troll's carotid artery. His eyes were determined. One sword thrust in, the battle was over. Eugene had won. He walked up to everyone and said, "See, just basic operations." Stein still wanted to shout something, but he couldn't understand why Eugene had no fear, but rather seemed excited. He also wanted to become such a person. At this moment, the weapon in Eugene's hand suddenly disappeared in a shimmer. The Minotaur also slowly dispersed in this golden light. The bloodline ceremony was over. The two examiners who watched the whole thing were also greatly shocked. Regardless of whether it was their own child, they had to show off at this moment. Actually, Rolibion's original intention was to emphasize the spirit of cooperation, having the children work together to fight the Minotaur. He never expected Eugene to solo everything. Rolibion never expected. Guyard smiled and said, "Eugene has been strict with himself since childhood, obsessed with training. He's a martial arts prodigy." But Rolibion began to worry. After all, Eugene had defeated all the main house children. If the branch family surpassed the main house in the bloodline ceremony, it might breed the ambitions of certain conspirators. So he suggested Guyard adopt Eugene as his son. For Guyard, this was indeed a good suggestion. But before that, let's first congratulate the returning youngsters. Hearing that Eugene easily killed the troll, Big Cousin looked completely incredulous. How could such a reed-thin, weak body be so powerful? If he took my secret sauce on top of that, wouldn't he be able to punch heroes and kick demon kings? Though his own children basically played no role throughout, this didn't affect the family head's joyful mood. Originally, the family head had prepared a grand banquet, but unexpectedly, Eugene cleared the the maze so quickly, he could only let the children go rest first. At this moment, the family head called out to Eugene. This inevitably caught Stairs' attention. She said, "Are you taking him to the treasury? I want to go, I want to go, I want to go." But they all ignored her. She cursed, "You won't grow tall, Eugene." On the way, the family head said, "I heard you're skilled with all kinds of weapons." Eugene said, "Basic operations." In the maze, Eugene used shield and sword, but when defeating Stein and Dazara, he used a spear, though it symbolized the Reinhardt family's weapon mastery. The great Vermut was proficient with all 18 weapons, and Helmo was also called a weapon master. But the fairy tale book called him the foolish Helmo. Every team needs a fool, doesn't it? Never won a fight, but very confident. In the end, he even took a blade for his companions. The family head said, "So compared to Vermut, I prefer Helmo." Hearing this, Eugene didn't know how to respond. He never expected the family head to be his fan. This could make Eugene narcissistic for a whole year. Soon the two arrived at the treasury entrance. The family head said, "You're the first person besides the family head to come to the underground treasury." Hearing this, Eugene was shocked, then said, "Are there any holy swords inside?" The family head said, "There are, but you can't draw them out either. Since the great Vermut, no one has been able to gain the holy sword's recognition." Eugene thought, "Who are you looking down on?" Arriving at the treasury entrance, seeing this magical way of opening doors, Eugene seemed to understand why the family head didn't come often, as the lion's eyes glowed with eerie light. The treasury door opened accordingly. The family head said, "Go in by yourself. If I accompany you, it would affect your performance." After Eugene bowed, he entered the treasury alone. So start with the holy sword. This wasn't an ordinary sword. It had existed in this world for hundreds of years. Throughout the long years, it had only one master, Vermut. But today, it would submit to Eugene. After all, we're old acquaintances. Give me some face. Eugene then gripped the sword hilt with both hands. "Come out, little baby." However, Eugene put all his strength into it, but still couldn't draw it out. Actually, ever since the holy sword killed the slaughtered demon king, it had always been the team's portable flashlight. Thinking about it this way, it wasn't that useful. A real man can't give up the whole forest for one tree. Real men should have multiple choices. Predator Asurfi was actually a magic staff. To use it well, one must cultivate both magic and martial arts. The key point was, it was too trashy and didn't suit Eugene. Skip it. Kalpus, which needed preheating to release dragon breath. Storm Sword Wild, which could summon the Wind Spirit King. Philanoa, which could shoot lightning regardless of distance. Dolan's Shield, which could make all attacks flow into the void. And this Serpent Tail. It could be said taking any weapon wouldn't be a loss, but why weren't Fenrir 6 and Yanmo here? After all, 300 years had passed, the good stuff was long gone. Now the optimal choice was Wild. Elemental magic was famously difficult to learn. Having Wild was like having a cheat code. But having come this far, Eugene decided to wander around more. Besides magical weapons, the treasury also collected some decorative items with commemorative value. Just then, Eugene suddenly stopped. He grabbed the necklace in front of him and examined it repeatedly. It was his own necklace. This was a relic from Helmo's parents. He was still wearing this necklace when he died. How could it be here? Did my good buddy collect my body? It seemed that after his death, his companions hadn't abandoned him. Helmo died in battle at the sealed Demon King castle, but Vermut made a pact with the sealed Demon King and put his relics here. What was Vermut thinking? Actually, Eugene wasn't blaming Vermut and his companions. They must have had good reasons for doing this. He just wanted to know the content of the pact. Why did Vermut, who never approached women, marry so many wives? Having been cursed by the Demon King, he should have been completely destroyed after death. Why was he reborn? Though many weapons in the treasury were tempting, Eugene didn't want to leave his relics here. Moments later, the family head was very puzzled by Eugene's choice. Even more puzzling was how this kind of necklace appeared in the treasury. The crude and old craftsmanship wouldn't even sell for enough to buy a bucket of instant noodles. Moreover, through testing, this necklace had absolutely no registration records. Simply ridiculous. The family head said, "This definitely isn't a Reinhardt treasure. It shouldn't exist in the treasury." Eugene said, "But I took it from in there." The family head said, "This necklace has no value whatsoever. Even so, would you still choose it?" Eugene said, "I'm certain." But the family head remained cautious about items of unknown origin. He planned to have a mage examine it to see if it was a magical item. It would be awkward if there were some embarrassing images of the old grandpa sealed inside. He would make sure there were no problems before giving it to Eugene. But what Eugene chose was not Reinhardt's treasure. Therefore, the family head indicated he could go to the treasury and pick another item. Happiness came so suddenly. Who would have thought the family head would be so accommodating? Truly worthy of being a great fan of Helmo. There was nothing to hesitate about then. The decision was made. It would be you. Storm Sword Wild. Eugene was thrilled holding the sword. Upon hearing the news, Dazara questioned, "You use the spear so well, why didn't you choose a long spear? Whether it's Kalpus or Rontes, they're both stronger than this sword." Big Cousin said, "Get out of the way. A man's romance lies only in giant axes and warhammers. It doesn't matter if you can't lift it now. Come home with me and I'll give you my secret sauce. A warrior's destiny belongs to the hammer Zygrass. That's what a real man should wield." Watching the two argue, Eugene just felt a headache coming on. But he indeed hadn't seen any former Demon King's weapons in this treasury. They must have been sealed away somewhere by Vermut. The sword Eugene chose was not to be underestimated either. Though not very famous, it was blessed by the Elf King. In the future, when cultivating magical power, he could summon elves. And don't you think it matches my color scheme perfectly? But the brother and sister duo had no intention of humoring Eugene. The two of them had to settle this argument today. Eugene didn't continue to entangle with the pair either. This was the first time in his life he held a real sword. He absolutely had to show off today. Eugene then began swinging the sword. The momentum was impressive, effortless and graceful. Elegance never goes out of style. Eugene had to master this aspect of charisma. It's truly 1 minute on stage, 60 seconds off stage. This movement looked difficult, but was actually not simple at all. Meanwhile, the two were examining Eugene's necklace. After the on-site mage performed a series of flashy magical operations, he found nothing at all. The mage said, "I can't believe this is a treasure from Reinhardt's vault. It's just an ordinary necklace, as ordinary as they come." Unconvinced, Reliborn decided to investigate more deeply. The mage raised his middle finger. Magic power exists everywhere in this world. Therefore, most objects contain magical power. By reading the residual magic, one could see corresponding memories. The mage then slowly infused magical power into the necklace. Memories of the necklace instantly surfaced in his mind. The time was about 100 years ago, a discounted necklace purchased at the capital's wholesale market. Nothing special about it whatsoever. Since it was confirmed there was nothing hidden in the necklace, the family head decided to give it to Eugene later. Looking at the young man practicing swordplay under the moonlight outside the window, he couldn't help but show a motherly smile. He planned to accept Reliborn's proposal and make Eugene Reinhardt his adopted son. The next morning, Eugene was playing with the little maid when Reinhardt family's bachelor Jiwon suddenly appeared. He wouldn't allow anyone to escape singlehood before him. Although Eugene was unhappy inside, he still had to bow in greeting, planning to quickly send this guy away. But his thoughts had already been seen through by Jiwon. He grabbed Eugene and prepared to drag him away. There were already few single maids in the house, and he couldn't let Eugene get the better deal. He hurriedly wanted to take Eugene to see the family head. Eugene had no choice but to go with him. At this time, the family head Guyard had been waiting for some time. He indeed had some matters he wanted to discuss with Eugene. First was about Eugene's necklace. A mage had already used magical power to extract the memories within it. Nothing abnormal, just an ordinary necklace. Upon hearing this, Eugene was instantly shocked, because magical memory reading was magic created by Sena. If the mage found nothing, then someone must have attached new magic to the necklace. Who could it be, Vermut or Sena? But now wasn't the time to investigate the past. Better to get the necklace first. The family head was also straightforward, saying that if Eugene liked it, he could take it. The family head said, "Eugene, there's actually another matter I called you here for today. You might find it sudden, but it's good news for you." Hearing this, Eugene actually already had an idea. Eugene said, "Stair is indeed quite cute, and I do like her a bit, but I don't want to get married right now." No wonder, even though he had embarrassed her brother before, she didn't mind at all and always smiled sweetly. So she was waiting for me here all along. Eugene said, "We're still young, it's really not appropriate to talk about marriage." The family head said, "Stop, stop, stop. What are you thinking about? Eugene, I never planned to have you marry Stair." The scene became awkward. He wanted to find a hole to crawl into. At this moment, Eugene wished he could die on the spot. Eugene said, "Then what exactly do you mean?" The family head said, "I only want to adopt you as my son, yet you're setting your sights on my daughter." With the family head saying this, Eugene became even more embarrassed. He quickly said, "No, don't misunderstand." The family head said, "What do you think would happen if I told Stair what you just said?" Eugene said, "Maybe you should just kill me instead." The family head then indicated he could bring Jahard over too, and would respect Jahard like a brother. He just wanted Eugene to return to the main family. This would definitely be very beneficial for Eugene. Of course, the children were still young now. In a few years, it wouldn't be impossible for Eugene to pursue Stair. Eugene had thought only Stair was interested in him, but it turned out this old man in front of him also wanted him. Not only would he give him endless money to spend, but also teach him supreme magical power. Cultivating magical power in this world was no simple matter. First, you needed magic stones from high-level monsters, which were expensive as hell. Second, you needed guidance from someone with exceptional abilities. Even those who could get started within 2.5 years could be called geniuses. As a branch member of a branch family, Jahard obviously didn't possess such abilities. Eugene had thought he would need to grow wildly on his own in the future, but if he could return to the main family, that would be simply wonderful. Could you imagine a life where you didn't need to check prices when buying groceries? Of course, the specific matters still needed discussion between Jahard and the family head. Eugene then expressed his desire to learn magical power from the strongest person, because he was very curious about just how powerful the current head of the family was. Upon hearing this, Guyard smiled slightly. The strongest in the Reinhardt family now wasn't him, but that seemingly unreliable Jiwon. This was something Eugene truly hadn't expected. The family head said, "Be honest, Eugene. When did you start having designs on Stair?" Eugene said, "Can we please not talk about this topic?" After awkwardly saying goodbye to the family head, Eugene caught a whiff of an enchanting fragrance. Obviously, the scent of perfume extracted and concentrated at high temperature, and it was coming from around the corner ahead. That person obviously hadn't moved, must have been waiting for quite some time. Sure enough, when Eugene reached the corner, the second wife Anissa appeared right on cue. She even pretended it was a chance encounter. This clumsy acting was disgusting to watch. In contrast, the surprise on Eugene's face was just right. Eugene bowed in greeting. "Hello, I'm Eugene Reinhardt from Quito." Anissa said, "I didn't expect to meet you here." you talked with the family head for quite a long time. Eugene said, is there something you want to say to me? The corner of Anissa's mouth twitched. With her hot temper, how could she let this country bumpkin Eugene be so rude? But Eugene had, after all, swept through the entire bloodline ceremony. His future growth would definitely be astonishing. It was better to maintain a friendly relationship with such a person. When the time came, she could just push Stair into his arms, and wouldn't he be at her mercy then? Anissa, calculating shrewdly, didn't waste words, and directly asked what Eugene and the family head had discussed. Eugene indicated that since it was a private discussion, he couldn't tell her about. Seeing Eugene was unmoved and even putting her on a pedestal, Anissa had to explain she was just asking casually. She said, you and Stein had some misunderstanding before. I'm just representing him to apologize to you. Eugene said, you don't need to worry about it. After all, we're all family. Upon hearing family, Anissa frowned, though the words weren't wrong. Hearing them from Eugene's mouth made her feel very grating. The two chatted casually for a few sentences, then Eugene found an excuse to slip away. He really didn't want to have any entanglement with this woman. Anissa stood there silently watching Eugene leave. Her expression behind the fan was quite grim. Little brat, when you fall into my hands, I'll definitely beat you up good. Meanwhile, Jahard had originally thought this bloodline ceremony would make Eugene recognize reality, but who knew Eugene would easily claim the top position? This made Jahard tear up with pride. 2 days later, Jahard finally arrived at the main family. Until this moment, he still couldn't believe it. But when he saw the young man waving at him from afar, saw the boy's innocent smile, at this moment Jahard hesitated no more. He rushed forward and embraced Eugene tightly. So what about the main family? So what about status differences? Weren't they all crushed by my child anyway? Holding Eugene, Jahard was moved to tears. At this moment, he truly felt immense pride. Eugene said, didn't I say when I left? Piece of cake. You wouldn't doubt me, would you? Only then did Jahard notice Guyard standing to the side, and quickly bowed in greeting. After all, his child had just crushed his children. Better keep a low profile. The family head said, though I don't want to deprive you father and son of your quality time, could you please come inside for a chat? Jahard agreed readily, but still looked at Eugene reluctantly. Afterward, Guyard directly explained his proposal to adopt Eugene as his son, and that Jahard could also live in the main family afterward. After thinking for a moment, Jahard suddenly stood up to apologize, because he worried the other 3 children wouldn't accept Eugene, and also worried Eugene would face family exclusion. Guyard understood his meaning. Even if Eugene became his adopted son, the Council of Elders wouldn't allow a branch member to become the family head. So as long as Eugene had no G-Lide, he wouldn't limit Eugene's development. Eugene could become brothers with his sons. Jahard also knew that only in the main family could Eugene have more possibilities. As his father, he should make the right choice, but still inevitably felt somewhat dejected. Eugene saw his father's state, and knew this matter must have given him quite a shock. Jahard approached and saw the storm sword at Eugene's waist, something he couldn't afford, even if he sold everything he owned. Though reluctant, he still told Eugene he hoped Eugene could become the main family's adopted son, but living under someone else's roof might encounter many difficulties in the future. Eugene smiled confidently. He wouldn't be bullied anywhere, and he wouldn't forget that his name was given by his late mother, and his true father would always be Jahard Reinhardt. Eugene actually had no intention of becoming the family head, but whether others believed, that was another matter. After all, both of the family head's wives were not easy to deal with. Facing dissatisfaction and suppression, Eugene had 2 ways to handle it. The first was to ignore it, and the second was naturally to confront it head-on. Jahard's arrival not only took over Eugene's room, but also his maid. In the end, Eugene had to bear it all alone. At the main family banquet, Big Cousin's father was vigorously promoting his secret sauce. Eugene seriously suspected their family was running a pyramid scheme. The second wife in the corner watched everything coldly. Stein looked like a sulky little weakling. The second wife said, lift your head up, mind your posture. Upon hearing this, Stein quickly straightened his chest and raised his head. The second wife then began educating Stein. In the future, he would definitely be compared to Eugene. After all, this was the first time the main family lost to a branch family. Stein could feel ashamed about this, but absolutely couldn't give up because of it. To become the family head, he must work twice as hard in the future. He also had to get along well with Eugene from now on, so that Eugene would become his assistant. About this, the proud young master was in trouble. Getting along with Eugene, this was a big problem indeed. Here, Stair encountered Eugene. She said, I heard you like me and even proposed to father. Rumors, absolute rumors. Nothing like that happened at all. Stair said, then what's this picture about? Did you secretly draw it? I'm only 13, Eugene. This house no longer had a place for him. Meanwhile, everyone was discussing Lyde's matter of learning magic. Lyde would go to Yarao with the mage, but whether he could successfully become a disciple still depended on Lyde's magical aptitude. Of course, the mage would submit more resumes for Lyde, giving him more opportunities. At the same time, he wouldn't let Lyde suffer from discriminatory treatment and would create a good learning environment for him. As for the young man, at this moment he felt healed. Actually, it didn't matter where he went. He just wanted to leave this suffocating family. But the first wife obviously didn't like emotional scenes. She told Lyde he must seize this learning opportunity. He was her son, Tungus's son, and must become strong. Even while in Yarao, he absolutely couldn't slack off because of it. This scared Lyde into quickly seeking help from his father. Guyard also had no way to deal with his wife. Tungus looked completely indifferent, just a mother's parting words to her son. But inside, she was already going crazy. That old hag must be thrilled right now, but she had no other choice. Only hoping Lyde would work hard in Yarao and return as a king. The next day, Lyde left for Yarao with the mage. The other contestants also returned to their respective homes, and Eugene was preparing to start cultivating magical power. There were roughly 2 types of magical cultivation in this world: breathing techniques and body training methods. In his previous life, he had used the body training method. Later, under Sena and Vermut's guidance, he switched to breathing techniques. Eugene then came with Jiwen to the depths of the forest. The Reinhardt family's spiritual vein wasn't naturally formed, but was personally created by Vermut 300 years ago. Jiwen indicated that the younger one was when cultivating magic, the better. The main family's children all began cultivating at age 6. The twin siblings took 3 days to sense magical power. Lyde took about a week. For Eugene at this age, it would take about a month. Even with his help, it would probably take 10 days. He hoped Eugene wouldn't be discouraged. Eugene was indifferent about this, thinking, I probably won't even need 10 minutes. Just wait and see. The next moment, Jiwen began casting magic. And for Eugene, magical power was like fireflies in the dark night sky, so distinct, so outstanding. Wherever it lit up, he could point it out. Piece of cake. Seeing this, Jiwen said in disbelief, impossible. Absolutely impossible. Jiwen felt something must have gone wrong. He really couldn't understand. But sensing magical power was only the first step for the young man. Next came the in-depth study of breathing techniques. The top-level breathing technique inherited by the main family was the white flame style. When operating, magical power would manifest as high-density white flames, like exploding lion's mane. But Jiwen discovered that just as he finished explaining, Eugene had already begun using magical power. Eugene followed his breathing to slowly gather magical power. Then, according to the white flame style's airflow, guided it into his heart. Jiwen thought, this must be a fake lesson. This is a breathing technique, not just breathing. Could it be that the family head sent someone to deliberately prank me? Eugene's actions completely challenged his understanding. And Eugene at this time wasn't paying attention to Jiwen at all, because with memories from his previous life, sensing magical power and using breathing techniques were very simple. But was this body absorbing magical power a bit too easily? Every breath could feel magical power increasing in his body. Was this the blessing of his good buddy's bloodline? Got to say, worthy of being Vermut. And the size of the core was not to be underestimated either. Looking at it this way, being reborn as your grandson wasn't too bad. As Eugene finished cultivating, the scene became somewhat awkward. Jiwen didn't know whether he should say something appropriate. He said, it looks like you have a little talent for cultivating magical power, a tiny bit stronger than I was back then. But moderation is key. Let's stop here for today. On the way back, Jiwen explained the subsequent cultivation of white flame style. As magical power increased to a certain level, the core would split, allowing the body to contain more magical power and enabling the split cores to resonate. Those split cores were called stars. In the Reinhardt family's history, only Vermut had cultivated to 10 stars. Jiwen and the family head were both 6-star. The young masters and misses of the main family were all 1-star now, but the twin siblings should reach 2-star next year. They began cultivating at 6 and took 8 years to reach 2-star. But Eugene's talent was a little bit better, so as long as he didn't slack off, he should be slightly faster. About this, Eugene cheerfully expressed he would definitely cultivate seriously. You foolish weaklings, soon you'll feel my terror. Returning to the manor, Jiwen decided to first report today's situation to the family head, and let Eugene rest first. But this bit of fatigue was nothing to Eugene. He could still do something interesting. What a coincidence. The little maid encountered Eugene returning. She ran over wanting to hug him, but fortunately Eugene noticed and stopped her in time, having her fetch the storm sword instead. Just right to test if he could summon an elf and sign a contract. Eugene then held his breath and concentrated, slowly infusing magical power into the sword. Suddenly the heavens and earth changed color, wind rose and clouds surged, a massive tornado formed out of thin air, and from within this eye of the storm came a voice. Are you Helmo? Eugene remembered this voice. The owner of this voice was none other than the Storm Elf King, Tanfist. Eugene shouted, Tell me quickly, Tanfist, why didn't Vermut kill the Demon King? Tanfist said, I cannot know Vermut's intentions. The battle at that time was extremely brutal. In the end, only Vermut and the reclusive Demon King remained. But during the final battle, Vermut sheathed his sword. Eugene said, Vermut made a pact with the Demon King. Tell me what the content of that pact was. Tanfist said, I don't know the pact's content. The moment Vermut sheathed his sword, I died. Eugene said, how can you not know this or that? But the Elf King indicated there was no more time. Under normal circumstances, Eugene's little bit of magical power wouldn't be nearly enough. It was because it sensed a familiar soul that he insisted on opening the door. Though Eugene still wanted to make things clear, his body could no longer continue to support him. He directly collapsed unconscious from magical exhaustion. This scared the little maid on the side. How did Eugene collapse? When Eugene woke up again, It was already deep in the night. His head hurt as if he'd drunk fake alcohol, and his hands were still trembling, but he was also very happy to meet past companions again. The little maid who entered saw Eugene awake, and finally put her worried heart at ease, though seeing him trembling his right hand on the bed was quite strange. She didn't pay attention to these details, and quickly went to call the family heads over. Soon the two came to Eugene's room. Guyard quickly inquired about the day's strange phenomena. Had he summoned an elf? About this, Eugene didn't know what to say, making such a big commotion and summoning the Elf King. This seriously didn't match his consistently low-key and sincere image. He'd better find an excuse to fool them. Eugene said, "I accidentally summoned the Elf King. I don't know how it happened either." The two had originally thought he'd only summoned an elf, never expecting him to bring out the Elf King. This was completely unreasonable. Eugene indicated the Elf King was a bit tsundere, actually disdaining that he wasn't strong enough now, but looked forward to meeting again in the future, then returned to the elf realm. Upon hearing this, Guyard's beard twisted with laughter. Couldn't help but sigh that the Reinhardt family had successors, mastering white flame style in seconds during the day. Then a little wave of the hand produced a golden legend. His future achievements would be immeasurable. He then quickly told Eugene to rest well. Originally, after the bloodline ceremony, he planned to continue traveling and training with Jiwon, but now he would have Jiwon stay to properly teach Eugene. Of course, the twin siblings would also follow along. He told Eugene to be prepared. Meanwhile, hearing about Eugene's deeds, Stein and Stayer were quite affected. The two finally began seriously cultivating. They just didn't know yet that the gap between them and Eugene would only grow larger in the future. After all, if effort were useful, what would be the point of rebirth? The next day when Eugene woke up again, he couldn't wait to pick up the storm sword. As magical power flowed in, a small elf instantly appeared. Obviously, this wasn't the Elf King. "Where is your king? Have Tanfist come see me." The elf wasn't going to indulge Eugene, directly charging up for a ramming attack to his forehead, then instantly disappeared. Though Eugene still had many questions, he could only wait until he became stronger in the future. Back then, he and his 4 good friends had swept through the Demon King's castle, but sadly his fallen brother's DPs wasn't enough. But it didn't matter. In the future, he would slowly search for his companion's traces, and eventually kill the remaining 2 Demon Kings. Time flew by, and 3 years passed. Eugene's white flame style reached 3 stars, but for Eugene, this was still far from enough. It was time to go to Yarao to learn magic. Stein was shocked. He said, "What are you talking about?" Though the proud young master couldn't beat Eugene, he never gave up verbally. Who knew Eugene would directly explode on the spot? The white flame aura produced by 3-star resonance directly blinded Stein's eyes. Stein said, "You clearly started cultivating magical power 7 years later than me, yet reached 3 stars first. What's wrong with you?" Eugene said, "Can't help it, I'm a genius. Simply cultivating magical power can no longer satisfy me, so I need to expand new skills." Stein said, "I really want to kill you." Eugene said, "Sure, stand up and see if I'll beat you up." Stein could only turn his head proudly away. He couldn't admit he just didn't want Eugene to leave, so he immediately brought up Lyde's failure case. Lyde, due to mediocre aptitude, failed to successfully become a disciple. Though he got into the magic power through connections, that was just wasting time. Eugene was quite angry at Stein's disparagement of Big Brother, scaring Stein into trembling. Having no choice, Stein could only scratch his head and say that if Eugene went to Yarao, Stayer would definitely be very sad. About this, Eugene didn't believe it at all. Stayer hadn't talked to him for a long time and didn't train together, so she couldn't possibly be sad. Watching Eugene walk away, Stein angrily kicked away his long sword. "Damn, Eugene, serves you right being single." Meanwhile, the family head who learned of this was also quite surprised. The family head said, "Reaching 3 stars at your age is unprecedented. Learning magic would only waste your talent." But Eugene completely ignored the family head's persuasion, determined to leave. The family head had no choice, and could only seriously warn Eugene that he absolutely must not touch black magic. Yarao had a black magic tower where black mages gathered, though people's understanding of black magic had changed somewhat now. As descendants of the great Vermut, the Reinhardt family must forever remain wary of black magic. After saying goodbye to the family head, Eugene prepared to return to his bedroom. Passing by Stayer's door, she called out to him. She didn't understand why Eugene, who had already learned elf magic, still wanted to go to the distant place of Yarao to learn magic. She said, "If you don't train properly, my brother and I will surpass you soon." Eugene said, "That would be perfect. Training together would be more interesting then. Besides, you haven't been training with me anyway." Stayer said, "If I train with you in the future, would you not leave?" Eugene directly refused. He was determined to go to Yarao, and didn't know how long he'd be away. Jahard had completely adapted to life in the main family. Seeing Eugene had no more attachments, the girl quickly said that if he left, Jiwon would be very sad, and her brother would be very sad too. But none of this would affect Eugene's decision. He told Stayer to train well and prepared to leave. Stayer quickly poked her head out to call to Eugene walking away. "Are you really leaving?" But Eugene just waved his hand hand without looking back. Stare was very sad. There was something she ultimately couldn't bring herself to say. Actually, she also didn't want Eugene to leave. Yarao was a magic city floating in the air. For just 9,099, you could enjoy aerial delivery service. In nearly 200 years, there had been only dozens of crash accidents, but not one person had left a bad review. It could be said to be Yaro's most popular means of transportation. Eugene just felt speechless. The people who crashed were dead. How could they leave bad reviews? Eugene quickly interrupted the tour guide's sightseeing spiel. Such awkward chat was purely a waste of time. Better to go to Senia's residence first. Upon hearing this, the tour guide became even more excited, because Senia's residence was a must-visit check-in spot for tourists. About 200 years ago, Sena left a letter saying she was going into seclusion and then disappeared. No one knew where she went. Many mages tried to track her whereabouts, but to this day there had been no discoveries. The tour guide had a theory. He believed Sena went alone to the demon realm Hermod, because the day she disappeared was exactly the death anniversary of Hermod. She must have been unable to forget her fallen companion. Legend had it that Hermod had always secretly loved Lady Sena, and before Hermod died, he had confessed his love to Sena. What an enviable romance. Eugene said, "What nonsense are you spouting?" Upon hearing this, the tour guide looked completely confused. Looking at the bewildered tour guide, Eugene was at a loss too, and quickly lied that he disliked melodramatic story plots, just wanted to know other theories about Sena's seclusion. Sena greatly detested demons and black magic, and once firmly opposed establishing the Black Magic Tower, so it was also possible that Sena had been assassinated by black mages. Mere black mages assassinating Sena, Eugene naturally didn't believe it, but the bulging veins on his hands revealed his inner unease. Individual black mages were naturally not a threat, but the demons of Hermod had always been supporting the Black Magic Tower, and they certainly harbored deep hatred for Sena. Eugene secretly swore to find out the truth. He didn't believe Sena was really dead. There were many people queuing to visit Sena's residence. With the Reinhardt family's reputation, Eugene successfully cut in line. Though he still didn't know what had happened in the past, this was where Sena had lived. He would definitely be able to find traces Sena left behind. Eugene believed they would definitely meet again. A girl who dreamed of marriage and children remained single for over 100 years, only because the boy she liked had fallen before the Demon King's palace, obviously at the prime of youth, yet having to save the world. If everything had ended, she should have enjoyed life properly. Sena asked, "What do you plan to do in the future, Hermod?" Morin wants to become a king. Hermod had never thought about such questions before, and had never seen Sena look so gentle. This was a scene he could never have dreamed of. Not knowing how to answer, he could only ask Sena about her future plans in return. Who knew that Sena would suddenly freeze, speechless for a moment. After a while, she said she wanted to live like an ordinary person, getting married and having children frequently, then becoming an old grandmother and slowly aging. She should have found a good man to live a stable life with, so why did she live alone for 100 years and never marry? Sena, what were you really thinking? Eugene, moved to his depths, instinctively reached out to touch. Suddenly, the guard said, "Please visit rationally, no touching allowed, I'll be watching you." Just when the feeling was coming on strong, one touch would have been enough, but this manager was really asking for a beating. Helpless Eugene no longer obsessed over the portrait. Underground in Sena's mansion was a huge library. There might be clues that Sena had left behind here. Suddenly, the guard said again, "Please visit rationally, no touching allowed. I said I'd be watching you." Eugene found himself unable to resist wanting to beat him up, but now there were more important things to do. His necklace had mysteriously appeared in the Reinhardt Treasury. The Wind Spirit King had also recognized him the moment he appeared. It was clear that his rebirth was definitely not a coincidence. Someone had definitely manipulated it. If it was Sena, then she would surely have left clues. But there were no discoveries here at all. "I never thought you were such a mysterious person, Sena. If you wanted me to do something, couldn't you have just said so properly?" Taking advantage of the moment when the manager turned around, Eugene said, "Sena, if you're unhappy, come find me. I'll be waiting for you." Eugene knew the portrait couldn't possibly respond. He just hoped Sena was still alive, hoped there was still a chance to meet again. Although it was already dark, the tour guide was still guarding the entrance. Generous Eugene directly gave him a tip. He said, "There's something I want to ask you. Do you know my big brother Lied Reinhardt?" Upon hearing this, the tour guide suddenly became nervous. He didn't know how to explain the situation to Eugene. Young Master Lied was sworn enemies with gambling and drugs. He was well known throughout Yarao. He was the man who single-handedly raised the GDP of Yaro's entire service industry. He was simply the trendsetter for successful men's choices, and he was particularly devoted to succubi, being a member of the Reinhardt clan, yet mixing with the demon race. Upon hearing this, Eugene's fists instantly hardened. He couldn't wait to go and cut down the succubi right now. But after all, he had come out to investigate. He couldn't act rashly, and just bringing Lied to justice wouldn't solve anything. He needed to deal with it from the source. It seemed necessary to conduct a thorough investigation into what was really going on. After all, he needed to let the facts speak. Originally, Lied, who had once yearned for magic, had encountered a succubus. His whole person began to mature rapidly. Seeing his decadent big brother, Eugene was furious. How did Lied become like this? Although he really wanted to drag him over and beat him up. Obviously, catching him red-handed would make him learn his lesson. In case there were some hidden circumstances, he could also try to save this wayward youth. After Lyde was refused entry, the two chatted about the purpose of this trip. Although Eugene wanted to learn magic, he wouldn't become a disciple of Reborn. With Lyde's precedent, it wasn't convenient to use connections again, and Eugene wanted to try self-studying magic. This couldn't help but make the lady mage on the side laugh out loud. But before the lady mage could speak further, an explosion suddenly occurred upstairs. As everyone knew, the Red Magic Tower specialized in summoning magic, and before summoning something out, it was no different from opening a blind box. Two cute dogs rushed out. Unfortunately, before they could get far, they were caught by giant red hands. They were crushed in an instant. These hands belonged unmistakably to Tower Master Reborn. His mood wasn't very good at the moment. He directly lamented that his magic tower was full of idiots, thinking they could summon whatever they called by putting their hands together. Three mage apprentices hurriedly said it was all a misunderstanding, but they still got expelled from school by the angry Reborn. Maybe this was the charm of summoning magic. After the crisis was resolved, he quietly descended. He hurriedly assured Eugene that this was just an accident, that learning magic was still very interesting. Having not seen each other for years, Reborn's appearance hadn't changed at all, but Eugene, who had now cultivated magical power, could feel that he was very strong, worthy of being one of the 5 tower masters at that time. Since Eugene planned to self-study, Reborn wouldn't interfere, but he still had the lady mage help Eugene. During his stay in Yarao, all meals and accommodation were provided. He could also visit the tower's library at any time. Over the next month, Eugene quickly entered study mode. During the day, he immersed himself in the library reading books. Before bed, he honed his magical power and martial arts, sleeping only 9 hours each day, yet showing no signs of fatigue. He had completely mastered magic, from beginner to expert level. The magic classification system established by Sena 300 years ago was still in use today. Mages used magical power to weave circles within their bodies to cast magic. When a circle's magical power reached its maximum value, the number of circles would increase. Circles were also the optimal magical formula verified over the past 300 years. Now only elves and black magic didn't use circle-based entry methods, but Eugene didn't want to use the circle method for entry. Instead, he planned to use the Reinhardt magical power application method. The lady mage said, but martial arts and magic use completely different tracks for magical power application. If you derail, you'll definitely die on the spot. Unfortunately, the lady mage couldn't dissuade Eugene at all. She could only summon her staff to prepare for some physical persuasion. But as Eugene circulated the magical power around his body, the lady mage could hardly believe her eyes. Eugene had mastered magic in just 30 days. He lived like he had cheat codes enabled. With a small wave of his hand, a fireball appeared. No hand seals needed. Instantly called out magic missiles. This completely overturned the lady mage's understanding. She couldn't comprehend what a rebirth cheat was. These special effects looked like she definitely couldn't handle them. She quickly summoned an iron golem to tank some damage. Eugene's magic shockwave shot straight out, piercing right through the iron golem. Moments later, Reborn examined the golem's remains. He couldn't believe this was magic cast by Eugene. The lady mage said, "Very absurd, isn't it, Tower Master? It's completely unreasonable." Reborn also realized the seriousness of the situation. Eugene was White Flame style 3-star. Could this be understood as equivalent to magic's 3 circles? What monster-like talent? Although it would cause dissatisfaction among other mages, Reborn still planned to prepare Eugene a recommendation letter for A.K. Cleven. At this moment, he wondered, but who did young Master Eugene go out to see? He shouldn't know anyone in Yarao, the lady mage said. Maybe an online friend. At this time, Eugene was standing dazed in front of Sena's statue. A tall figure was slowly approaching, with that luxuriant beard and robust muscles. It was big cousin Gargis. Was this what an 18-year-old youth should look like? Gargis said, 3 years no see, Eugene. Your muscles haven't grown at all. But don't worry, I have a solution. Muscle growth agent upgraded version, only $999 for 1 bottle. Eugene quickly interrupted his big cousin. He had absolutely no interest in these weird things. When the promotion failed, big cousin had a new plan. Recently, there would be an auction at Happy Street, and among this period's auction items was the legendary Giant Clan's testicles. The Giant Clan's what? The Giant Clan's testicles, that's great tonic stuff. Muscle growth agent made with it would definitely be more powerful. But big cousin said he didn't have enough money and hoped Eugene could support him. Eugene said, "Give up. I won't possibly lend you money to buy testicles." Upon hearing this, big cousin's expression changed. Then he knelt on the ground and said, "Please be sure to lend it to me." Embarrassed, Eugene had no choice but to agree to lend money to big cousin. Big cousin said, "I swear by my muscles that I'll definitely pay you back with interest." Big cousin said he only needed 1 testicle. Eugene could completely take the other one to fry, boil, cook, or stew. It was said the taste was worth savoring. Not talking about testicles, Eugene was very interested in Happy Street. After Lyde was poisoned by the succubus, he developed withdrawal symptoms. He had to find a succubus once a month for magical supplementation. So this full moon night Lyde would definitely go to Happy Street, since Lyde gained the succubus's favor. In 3 years, he had lived through what others lived in a lifetime. His 17-year-old face was full of stories. As the eldest son of the family, his qualifications were far inferior to his younger siblings. He also had to be caught between the power struggle of two wives. Lide had long lived under their oppression. Although he later had the opportunity to study magic in Yarao, Lide didn't have the corresponding magical talent. Plus, being born into a legendary family, everyone had high expectations of him. Little did they know such expectations only multiplied his pressure. Fortunately, Lide finally found a way to release pressure. He got a bit of breathing space and didn't completely collapse, but the Reinhardt family and the demon race were sworn enemies. Emotionally, Eugene could understand Lide's actions, but he couldn't allow Lide to do this. At this moment, Roly Bion suddenly summoned a magic letter. Eugene was shocked when he saw it. It turned out to be a recommendation letter from the Royal Library A.K. Sleven. A.K. Cleven not only had ancient magic passed down from the mythical age, but also had masterworks by contemporary sages, including the original manuscripts of Sena's 3 magic works. Suddenly receiving such an honor, Eugene instinctively wanted to be modest. He really was a 1 in 10,000 magic genius. Brother Lide studied hard for 3 years and couldn't get into a single magic tower. He had just come to Yarao for a month and was already guaranteed admission to A.K. Cleven. Indeed, people's joys and sorrows were different. Life was so good. But what exactly had Lide done with the succubus? Eugene said he had to personally confirm it. The flower district on the full moon night was bustling with excitement. Eugene and Big Cousin also quietly arrived. Of course, to avoid being recognized, both used transformation magic. After all, main family disciples entering the red light district would definitely make headlines. Big Cousin didn't understand but still thought it made sense. At this time, the tour guide called. He would stand at a high place to observe Lide's movements. After all, Lide never used transformation magic, and he always wore a black robe, making him easy to identify. Upon hearing this, Eugene was furious. Visiting the red light district so brazenly, Lide's actions were simply too numerous to record, extremely evil and enviable. But Big Cousin wasn't concerned about this. He just wanted to quickly go by the giant clan's testicles. The auction paid great attention to customer experience. All guests were arranged in different private rooms. No one knew anyone else's identity. Before long, the auction officially began. Although the host's introduction was interesting, the auction items were lizard horns, or devil fruits, and little orchids. Eugene had absolutely no interest in these. When would the giant clan's testicles come out? Big Cousin was very anxious, but when the host displayed the next auction item, Eugene couldn't sit still. This was an item that had failed to sell multiple times. Its only function was to emit beautiful light under moonlight. It was a very good choice for picking up girls. However, before he finished speaking, Eugene was already bidding. Fortunately, no one raised the price, allowing Eugene to successfully win it for the high price of 1 million. Eugene's heart was already in turmoil. He hadn't expected to see it in such a place. That was the turbid blade that wasn't left in history, the legendary divine sword, Moonlight Sword, that could destroy everything it pointed at. A fragment of it. Although in Big Cousin's eyes this thing was unremarkable. The Moonlight Sword was discovered in the depths of Liu on the Teyvat continent. Symbolizing misfortune, it only recognized Vermut as its master. Who would have thought such a powerful divine sword had already become fragments, and there was no aura of power on this fragment, just like an ordinary glass shard. At this time, Eugene's phone rang. The voice said, "Young Master Eugene, young Master Lide has appeared." Getting the news, Eugene hurriedly walked out. The giant clan's testicles could only be guarded by Big Cousin alone. Soon Eugene arrived at the scene, but there were actually 2 demon security guards at the entrance. This was the first time Eugene had encountered demons since his rebirth. He almost drew his sword and rushed up to beat them. Although the 2 demon security guards looked fierce and menacing, when Eugene pulled out 2 million, they still bowed their humble heads and respectfully sent Eugene in. Eugene had just entered when he was targeted by a succubus. The succubus said, "Cola, Sprite, lemon tea. What would dear young master like to drink?" Eugene said, "I'll give you 2 million, hope you can be more reserved." The succubus said, "You're so cute, young master, let's have some wine first." Feeling like she was about to do something inappropriate for children, Eugene said, "No need for wine." The succubus said, "Let me treat you comfortably." Eugene said, "I'll give you another 1,000,000, please leave." The succubus said, "Are you not fully developed? How can there be someone like you who doesn't understand romance?" After getting rid of the succubus, Eugene entered the main hall alone. He immediately ordered a table full of chicken legs to reward himself. Indeed, succubi weren't as delicious as chicken legs. Before long, he saw 2 demons supporting a mysterious man walking out of a mysterious room. It was his big brother Lide, but he looked quite worn out. Seeing this situation, Eugene was almost furious to death. Lide not only had a messy relationship with succubi, but also let demons support him. He really disgraced the Reinhardt name. Eugene suppressed his anger and quickly got up. He wanted to find out where the demons would take Lide. Looking at Lide's mental state at this time, he shouldn't be able to handle a second round. What exactly were they planning to do? Just as he was about to follow, Eugene's path was blocked. Several people clearly came with ill intentions, menacingly approaching. They didn't waste words upon meeting, directly giving Eugene a chokehold. Unfortunately, he misjudged the situation. Eugene was a man who had been muscular since age 13. He directly gave the opponent an uppercut to the jaw, knocking him down directly. He fell to the ground, unable to get up. The two accompanying lackeys weren't intimidated at all. They directly drew weapons and charged forward, but they couldn't even touch Eugene's clothes. Instead, they were directly sent flying by Eugene. Still coming out to rob with this level of skill was simply laughable. Eugene said, "Friends, can someone now tell me in detail what this place is? How did they all pass out?" But they were all down, so it seemed he could infiltrate secretly. Without a word, Eugene directly kicked down the door and walked in. Why was there a smell of contraband in the air? What kind of place was this? Eugene's appearance terrified the three brothers nearby. The three brothers who were indulging looked fierce. Seeing this, Eugene said, "What a coincidence." However, the three brothers immediately drew their swords and charged forward. Eugene raised his hand and pointed. The magic attack directly hit them. The three brothers were instantly knocked to the ground. Then Eugene directly drew his storm sword. The opponent frowned, realizing things weren't simple. Did this person have a hobby of abusing raccoons? Who knew? Eugene directly raised the sword above his head. In an instant, sharp sword energy swept out, directly leveling all rooms on the first and second floors. But Lyde's figure wasn't found. Since he wasn't on the first and second floors, the target was obvious. He must be on the third floor. Eugene directly fired a magic spell upstairs, then leaped into the air. He discovered a mysterious room in the corner. "Big brother, I'm coming to find you now." However, at this moment, the door actually glowed with waves of blood-red magic. In a flash, a pillar of blood-colored magic surged forth. At the critical moment, Eugene quickly threw out the moonlight sword fragment. The powerful magical light wave couldn't advance an inch. It was all blocked by the fragment. Although it was just a fragment, the moonlight sword's magic immunity characteristic was indeed still there. Eugene said, "Old man, you just used black magic, right? You didn't even give a warning. You wanted to kill me, right? Then it seems you're prepared for battle." Eugene's erupting white flames were like a lion's mane. The guarding old man was almost scared to his knees. Fortunately, the demon brothers appeared, restoring the old man's confidence. Seeing this situation, Eugene laughed angrily on the spot. He said, "Just these two pieces of trash think they can block my way?" The demon brothers ignored Eugene's words and directly showed their claws. Eugene also stopped talking. In an instant, Eugene had already deployed his sword stance, but the demon brothers were completely unaware, directly rushing forward. Eugene swung his sword, summoning a tornado, solving one of them in a few moves. Witnessing his big brother's tragic death, the other demon was furious. In his anger, he actually delivered the peak strike of his life. However, it wasn't Eugene who was hit, but himself. He couldn't believe he had been defeated so easily. But Eugene didn't give him a chance to catch his breath. He directly reached out and grabbed its face. It couldn't move at all. It sat down directly on the ground. The fierce white flame energy destroyed Eugene's disguise. The old man on the side couldn't believe his eyes. That signature white hair. Could it be Eugene Lionheart? Eugene said, "Since you know, then get lost." When push came to shove, the old man still wanted to make excuses, but with his elementary school education, he couldn't make up stories. He steeled his heart and directly launched an attack at such close distance. "Let's see how you dodge." However, Eugene wasn't afraid at all. Just one zhang distance, Eugene instantly arrived in front of the old man and swung a sword. This sword was only 0.01 centimeters from his throat, but he didn't dare make excuses, only wanted to kneel. Before figuring out the truth, Eugene decided to spare his life for now. In the room, Lyde was lying quietly on the bed. In the basin under the bed were strange items emitting an eerie glow. The old man said, "That's a unicorn's heart, a sacrifice offered to make a contract with the succubus, and the demon who is about to make a contract with young master Lyde is a subordinate of the legendary succubus Queen Bella." Eugene angrily said, "So this is the reason Lyde indulged in contraband and privately mixed with succubi?" Hearing Eugene's angry questioning, the old man knelt on the ground and said, "These were all young master Lyde's wishes. I didn't dare refuse the young master's orders." Eugene accused, "Of course you wouldn't refuse taking Lyde's gold coins by the handful while arranging for him to make contracts with your master. You really struck it rich. If you don't want to die, kneel there properly." Eugene looked at Lyde's indulgent appearance on the bed. There was even unknown liquid remaining at the corner of his mouth. Instantly his anger soared through the roof. He went directly up to him. Lyde, still in his dream, was instantly startled awake. He couldn't figure out what was happening now. Eugene said coldly, "Are you awake now, my good big brother?" Lyde's feelings at this moment were indescribable. He didn't understand why Eugene was here. Eugene said, "I really tried hard to understand your situation, but as the legitimate eldest son of the Lionheart family, you actually made a contract with demons, and it was a male succubus. Do you know the consequences of making a contract with demons? After making a contract with demons, your soul will forever belong to the demon race. You will become a slave manipulated by the demon race." Upon hearing this, Lyde continued to make excuses, saying his demon friends were all very friendly and kind-hearted. wanted. They promised they wouldn't force him, and he really loved it there. And he felt Eugene didn't understand anything at all. Eugene possessed incomparable cultivation talent. He simply couldn't understand Lyde's situation and had no right to criticize Lyde. Eugene said, innate talent cannot be overcome, but having talent alone doesn't mean you can rest easy. You still need to put in far more effort than ordinary people. Stein and Stair, who stayed at the main house, are also training desperately, and even if you learned black magic, you still couldn't become the family head. Upon hearing this, Lyde instantly went mad. He had never thought about becoming the family head. He just wanted to go to that free place and gain recognition from his demon friends. Eugene said helplessly, as a descendant of the great Vermut, yet wanting to go to the demon realm Hamuder. If you weren't the legitimate eldest son of the main house, do you think they would play with you here? How can you be so stupid? You were born standing at the finish line that others could never reach in their lifetime, yet you still have the nerve to be decadent here. Eugene couldn't stand it anymore. He directly punched him flying. Eugene had no interest in listening anymore. He then took out his phone to notify Reliubon. Moments later, the old man was taken away by guards. In 3 years' time, a sunny youth had actually become like this. Reliubon's heart was also filled with indescribable disappointment. That night, the family head and the first lady rushed to Yarao. This scene left them only with silence, but just then, a mysterious visitor suddenly arrived. It was actually the legendary black magic master who had personally made a contract with the reclusive demon king, also the current Black Tower master Borzak Robes. What was he planning to do? It turned out he had come to accept blame. Although this had nothing to do with their black magic tower, the main culprit involved was a black magic master. There was no choice. He could only choose to take responsibility for this matter. The young maiden was imprisoned. All accomplices were arrested on the spot. This was very harsh to Guyard's ears, as if under pressure from the Reinhardt family's prestige. He had lowered his head and admitted wrongs he shouldn't have admitted. Of course, the First Lady didn't think so. She firmly believed it was the black magic master who had bewitched her son. For this, the Black Tower master also brought a message from the Demon King. The reclusive Demon King expressed that bringing unhappiness to the dear Vermut family made him feel very sad, so he would personally cut off the head of the involved male succubus. Upon hearing this, Eugene was furious. The reclusive Demon King actually called Vermut dear. Sooner or later, he would chop his down. Seeing the atmosphere becoming awkward, the Black Tower master chose silence. Face had been given, and it wasn't suitable to stay here longer. Before leaving, he didn't forget to give Eugene a mysterious smile. Then Eugene also got up to leave. After all, he wasn't in a good position to participate in dealing with Big Brother Lyde. Family head Guyard expressed his apologies to Reliubon. He would take Lyde back to the main house. The First Lady on the side was shocked. She felt her son hadn't even begun learning black magic and would reform. He might even become more diligent in the future. There was no need to take him back to the main house. But Guyard's face was gloomy. Lyde's actions had damaged the family's reputation. He had to return to the main house to receive education. The First Lady said, "Where is there still a place for Lyde in the main house? Now the main house has been taken over by Stein and Stair. Lyde must stay in Yarao no matter what." The First Lady angrily scolded Guyard for never caring about Lyde. All he did was hover around Anissa and those two damn children. Sometimes I really feel sorry for family head Guyard. The First Lady was a sickly yandere. The Second Lady was sinister and vicious. Indeed, pure love was the way to go. The First Lady said, "If you really care about Lyde, you should let Lyde become Reliubon's disciple. If you're worried about him going astray, you should send someone to supervise him constantly." The First Lady disagreed with taking Lyde back to the main house. She would rather take Lyde back to her parents' home. Guyard said helplessly, "If you wish it so, then let's do it this way." On the other side, Eugene, who was just about to go back and rest, discovered someone had been waiting for a long time in the shadows. It was Black Tower Master Borzak. The indoor atmosphere had been too serious just now. There was no chance to chat. He said the reason he was willing to take responsibility was largely because of Eugene. He knew Eugene hated black magic, but asked Eugene not to hate him. Faced with the Black Tower Master's outstretched hand, Eugene chose to ignore it. Eugene hated all black magic masters. The Black Tower Master, feeling awkward, quickly changed the subject. He would, like Reliubon, recommend Eugene to AK Clevin. This way, Eugene's chances of going to AK Clevin would greatly increase. It looked really sincere. Eugene said he'd take the gift but wouldn't do the work. It was already dark. He needed to hurry home for dinner. The helpless Black Tower Master then turned to leave. At this time, Eugene said, "Did you really not participate in Lyde's matter?" Borzak said, "I'm proud to be a black magic master, so even if it's the main house's legitimate eldest son, if he has no talent, then he's not worthy of becoming a black magic master. I hope you can understand my meaning." Eugene thought back to Lyde and was also very helpless. He was just a pitiful guy who longed for recognition. Back in his room, Eugene looked at the unicorn heart before him. This heart was in very good condition, perfect for frying, boiling, cooking, or stewing. But extracting magic power directly directly from the heart was the cleanest and most convenient method of use, feeling the pure magic power emanating from the heart. Eugene might be able to reach 4 stars before age 20. That would refresh the fastest record in family history. Jiwon and Gyard were white flame style 6 stars, already among the strongest on the continent. But they weren't Eugene's targets. Vermut had created the white flame style. Eugene wanted to incorporate everything of Hermod into it on that foundation. Then he'd crush all those demon kings into slag. On the other side, Big Cousin successfully bid on the giant clan's testicles. Final price 300 million. Eugene, pay up. Upon hearing this, Eugene was shocked. You want to spend 300 million to buy 2 testicles? And with my money? Big Cousin said, hurry up, Eugene. When it's done, I'll scrub your back. Big Cousin was relentless. Eugene had no choice but to pay. Then Big Cousin invited Eugene to his residence. After all, the chance to see testicles with your own eyes was very rare. Upon hearing this, Eugene felt a chill. Did he look like someone interested in that thing? But Eugene still decided to go back with Big Cousin. He was very interested in Big Cousin's red flame style, wanting to see what was different from White Rock Flame. Maybe he could even combine the two. Eugene, who was thinking, seemed to notice something. He immediately rushed out, desperately chasing. It couldn't be wrong. He absolutely couldn't be mistaken. That unnatural light purple hair color. That color that could only be produced by integrating massive magical power. Pushing through the crowd, Eugene finally saw clearly that the figure from just now was right ahead. Sena, is it really you? After 300 years apart, he had finally seen the person he'd been thinking about. At this moment, though he had 1,000 words, he couldn't make a sound. Sena was still as graceful as before. But Eugene was already different. He didn't know if Sena could recognize him. If he told her he had been reborn as Vermut's grandson, she would definitely scold him. After all, even after 500 more years, her personality would definitely still be that volatile. Eugene couldn't help but want to step forward and hold Sena's hand. How could this be? Could it be a spirit? Could something have happened to Sena? No, this was an illusion created with magic. Eugene helplessly lowered his arms. His heart was dead as ash. At this moment, Sena's phantom slowly turned around. Eugene's heart was filled with excitement. How could he tell her that he was Hermod? Would she recognize him? This appearance would surely awaken her memories. Sena, who had turned around, seemed to confirm something, and a slight smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She opened her mouth, as if she was speaking. After speaking, she smiled gently, then began to dissipate in the air. Were you saying, have you found it? The future we both long for still lies ahead. I hope to walk alongside you towards such a future. Do you know, Sena? I'm very happy now, because I've found you too. Before we truly meet again, I will definitely become more reliable. Eugene looked at the bustling street and fell into deep thought. Without a doubt, Sena was still alive, which was why she could come looking for Eugene. Perhaps like Tanfist, she recognized Eugene's soul. Perhaps she found Eugene's location through the necklace. Either way, Sena definitely knew about Eugene's rebirth. But since she couldn't come in person, it must be because of a seal. Perhaps Sena sealed herself, or perhaps she was sealed by the Demon King of Confinement. Sena must be unable to act freely now. This time you came to find me, so next time I'll come to find you. Please wait for me. Suddenly a voice rang out, looking up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. Eugene, are you afraid your tears will fall? What are you secretly plotting all by yourself? Eugene said, stop talking nonsense, hurry home and show me your red flame style. The big cousin found Eugene's hobby very strange. He had already mastered the white flame style, yet he was still interested in the red flame style. Seeing this, Eugene said, you seem to be working on something new. Can't you generate power without exploding your clothes? His big cousin said, that's not it. Don't you know about exploding clothes plus critical hits? Open your eyes wide and watch carefully. Although the big cousin was particularly troublesome, it had to be said that the power of the red flame style was also extraordinary. The mainstream red flame style of the main family couldn't achieve nuclear fission, but through the continuous efforts of the branch ancestors, it had now successfully split the red flame style to 5 stars, making it one of the best among the family branches. The big cousin still wanted to show off his 2-star strength, but Eugene chose to ignore him directly. It seemed that splitting the red flame style to 5 stars was already the limit. Vermut created the white flame style as the main family's secret transmission, then taught the red flame style to the branches and vassals. This created a gap between the main family and the branches. Eugene couldn't understand no matter how he thought about it, based on his understanding of Vermut. He shouldn't be such a petty person. Now it seemed there was no need to combine the white flame style and red flame style. Then Eugene turned and left, saying, the giant's testicles can be left for big cousin to admire alone. Returning to the red magic tower, Eugene came to the training room. The book in AK7 must contain clues about Sena. Now that he had obtained recommendation letters from 2 tower masters, getting an entry permit shouldn't be a problem. My dear Sena, I've already waited 300 years. Waiting a little longer shouldn't matter. The moonlight sword possessed anti-magic properties, but even a single fragment could only work against low-level magic. Therefore, if his magic power wasn't broken by the fragment. That would mean his magic power condensation had exceeded the level of the white flame style. Wait for me, Sena. I will definitely become stronger. That day, the Lady Mage was cosplaying as Sena. Suddenly, she was told that room 166 was continuously emitting vibrations and explosion sounds. Thinking that Eugene might be playing some thrilling game, she couldn't wait to join in but was suddenly startled by an explosion sound from inside. The Lady Mage hurried in and said, "Master Eugene, are you alright? Is this something someone my age should be seeing?" Eugene said, "I'm just practicing magic power and magic. Don't make such a fuss." The moonlight sword fragment was floating quietly in the air. Then Eugene gathered his magic power throughout his body, creating several deep craters on the ground. Could this be damage caused by a low-level mage? The Lady Mage was directly stunned. Eugene had already achieved the fusion of white flame style and magic, and the power after fusion far exceeded magic of the same level. Combined with the assistance of the moonlight sword, the magic power released now was even more concentrated. The Lady Mage said, "You must be tired from practicing, Master Eugene. Would you like to rest?" Unfortunately, Eugene refused. He prepared to go see Reliborn first, but Reliborn wasn't at the magic tower at all. Instead, he was at the Royal Library aka Sleven. Yaro's capital, Avalon, was located at the center of the 5 magic towers. Surrounded by lake water, it could only be reached by boat, and no other magic could cross the lake water. Because Sena had sealed the entire Avalon with magic, and even hundreds of years later today, the seal remained intact. Eugene couldn't help but marvel at how amazing Sena was. With his current magical knowledge, he couldn't understand at all how Sena had sealed the entire royal city. The Lady Mage leading the way noticed that Eugene was absent-minded, so she gave Eugene some popular science about what they saw in Avalon. Even tower masters couldn't use magic in Avalon. Only the court's mage corps could cast spells freely. The magic towers and Yarao had a mutually supportive relationship. Although loyal to the royal family, they had the right to refuse unreasonable commands. The relationship between the magic towers and the council was actually deeper, so the magic tower mages became the council's highest combat power. Currently, 3 people opposed Eugene's recommendation letter. They were the Blue Tower Master, the Green Tower Master, and the Mage Guild President. Eugene needed to gain their recognition to enter and exit AK Cleven. Then the Lady Mage bowed to Eugene in farewell. "Go for it, Master Eugene, you're the best." Eugene definitely wouldn't give up easily. He still needed to find clues about Sena from AK Cleven. At the council venue, Yaro's most powerful mages had been waiting for a long time. They were the Court Mage Corps Commander, Red Tower Master, Green Tower Master, Blue Tower Master, White Tower Master, Black Tower Master, and the Mage Guild President, whose hairstyle made people want to punch him. At this time, the person sitting in the highest position asked Eugene to raise his head. He was Yaro's crown prince. This crown prince was no simple person, not only the first heir to the throne, but also a strong person who reached the 5th ring before adulthood. He said, "I've heard of you, Eugene Lionheart. I heard you're talented, but casting magic is different from wielding swords and spears." He thought Eugene was just a 17-year-old brat, who definitely used the Lionheart family's influence to make shady deals with the Red Magic Tower and Black Magic Tower. Eugene didn't care about his attitude, but politely asked what he needed to do. The Red Tower Master said, "You just need to release magic. The mages will carefully observe your magic." The Blue Tower Master then said, "Originally, we would also need to study your magic themes and papers, but I suppose you don't have such things." The Blue Tower Master's sarcasm didn't shake Eugene, because Eugene would prove himself with his own strength. "Can you look down on others just by sitting up high? Can you talk nonsense just because you're old?" Eugene didn't care who you were, everything was decided by strength. But at this moment, the Tower Masters on the high platform were uninterested. They had seen too many geniuses. Just the fusion of core and ring wasn't enough to make them look at him differently. As Eugene slowly raised his right hand, a magic whirlwind easily condensed in his palm. Then it transformed into magic bullets that scattered like flowing clouds. In an instant, they gathered together again, fusing into a fireball. Finally, it became a magic blade flashing with cold light. He could actually change magic so skillfully and achieve chantless casting. The Blue Tower Master said, "Eugene, can you use magic and sword aura simultaneously? Can you do it?" Eugene smiled confidently, slowly drew the storm sword. His handsome appearance made the old lady's body tremble. Instantly, the storm sword was wrapped in Eugene's exclusive white flame aura, and his left hand still maintained the magic blade. He actually used cores to replace rings and could accurately use cores. At this moment, the mages couldn't help but admire Eugene's excellence. But regarding his entry to A Cleven, they still needed to discuss it. Therefore, Reliborn asked Eugene to wait outside first. Eugene naturally had no objections. He turned and left gracefully. After Eugene left, the Blue Tower Master said, "Red Tower Master, did you really never guide him?" Although Reliborn had said it many times, the Blue Tower Master still didn't believe Eugene was self-taught, especially in just 4 months. The Crown Prince said, "He's a member of the Lionheart family, a descendant of the great Vermut. Don't all the people on the Teyvat continent know how excellent their bloodline is?" The White Tower Master also affirmed Eugene's talent. She could see that Eugene's first ring magic had power far exceeding the first ring, though she might be more interested in Eugene's handsome face. The guild president had something to say about this matter. He acknowledged Eugene's talent, but he also felt Eugene was too young. It was too early for him to enter AK Cleveland now. He still needed to go home and study hard. On the contrary, the Court Mage Corps commander was very optimistic about Eugene. He believed Eugene had unlimited potential. After all, Eugene was an adopted son of the Reinhardts and couldn't possibly inherit the family in the future. The original first heir lied, had a scandal, and now the first successor was Stein Reinhardt. So Eugene would have to leave the main family after getting married. This was the Reinhardt family rule. The Court Mage Corps commander said, "I happen to have an unmarried granddaughter. What a coincidence." The Black Tower Master said, "Commander, you're really humorous. Are you here to be funny? I'm afraid you wouldn't even make the list." Eugene possesses qualifications recognized even by the Reinhardt main family. If he also gets Yarao's support, his future achievements might be comparable to the great Vermut. The Green Tower Master said, "Black Tower Master, you're praising Eugene so much. Is this your own opinion, or the opinion of the reclusive Demon King who signed a contract with you? Don't meddle too much, don't reach your hands too far, or it would be bad if they got chopped off." Hearing this, the Black Tower Master adjusted his glasses and showed a strange expression, saying, "My hands are right here. Want to chop them? Today I just want to either kill all of you or be killed by all of you." The Blue Tower Master said, "A fight? Count me in," seeing the atmosphere gradually becoming murderous. The White Tower Master stood up and said, "If we have different opinions, then let's vote." The Crown Prince quickly came out to mediate, saying the voting could start with him. He agreed to grant Eugene the AKC-11 entry permit. At the same time, Eugene, who was waiting outside, discovered that information about Sena was carved on the wall. Suddenly, Eugene felt a chill behind him. It turned out the White Tower Master had appeared behind him. Eugene said, "Move away from me, don't get so close. This puts me at a disadvantage." The White Tower Master said, "Do you know what you're saying, Eugene? I'm the famous beauty of the Magic Tower, the ceiling of beauty among female Tower Masters." Eugene said, "Aren't you the only female Tower Master?" The instantly embarrassed White Tower Master quickly changed the subject. Regarding Eugene's entry to AK Cleveland, 5 people voted in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 remained neutral. Eugene said, "Then it's settled. Can I go upstairs now?" The White Tower Master said, "Aren't you curious about everyone's positions? Let me tell you the truth. The one who remained neutral was me." The White Tower Master remained neutral because she didn't want to get involved in annoying verbal disputes. And that Blue Tower Master who talked a lot earlier, she thought he would oppose, but he actually voted in favor in the end. Isn't that surprising, Eugene? Guess which 2 people opposed? They were the Green Tower Master and the Mage Guild President. Seeing Eugene had no reaction, she said, "Are you really 17? Such a cold reaction." Eugene said, "If there's nothing else, I'll go first. You rest well." The White Tower Master came to chat up Eugene because she was interested in Eugene's storm sword. White Tower Master Menkes was the strongest spirit summoner of the current generation. Both the Lightning Spirit King and Earth Spirit King had signed contracts with her. Her dream was to collect all the Spirit Kings, but the Wind Spirit King had always refused to see her, so she wanted to obtain Eugene's storm sword. Previously, the White Tower Master had even sent letters to the Reinhardt main family, but family head Guyard refused to lend the sword no matter what. Eugene said, "Sorry, wife and sword are not for lending." The White Tower Master said, "Then what if your wife asked to borrow the sword?" Eugene said, "Still no lending. The storm sword is just temporarily lent to me by the main family." The Wind Spirit King was now extremely aloof and proud. Eugene had summoned for 4 years, but it never appeared again. Therefore, lending it to the White Tower Master wouldn't matter, but the deal couldn't be completed so easily. Maybe he could even get some unexpected surprises. The storm sword was a must-have for the White Tower Master, but she wasn't in a hurry. Eugene came to the front desk and received the AK Cleveland entry permit. The Royal Library AK Cleveland had 15 floors in total. Floors 12 to 14 contained Sena's magic books, and each floor of AK Cleveland had exclusive familiars. They were all left by legendary great mages in history, including Yaro's founding king and the wise Sena. Information about Sena might also be hidden in her familiar. The White Tower Master knew Eugene was very interested in Sena. After all, Eugene had visited Sena's mansion as soon as he arrived in Yarao. If Eugene agreed to lend her the storm sword, she would tell Eugene her exclusive information, but Eugene didn't pay attention to the White Tower Master. He planned to go to the library first to investigate carefully. The White Tower Master said, "Are you planning to go to the 12th floor? I knew you liked Sena. If it's you, I can accompany you." Eugene said, "No need, you can play downstairs by yourself." Hearing this, the White Tower Master was somewhat gloating. The first time seeing the truth of magic would be very shocking. She advised Eugene to prepare himself mentally quickly. It would be best to put on diapers now. The White Tower Master said, "Don't get so scared you wet yourself, Master Eugene." Eugene really didn't want to listen to her talk, so he frantically pressed the elevator button. What a nasty old lady. As the elevator door slowly opened, Eugene froze in place. This unique hair color, this appearance, he would recognize it even if it turned to ash. "Welcome to Sena's hall, Master Eugene." He absolutely couldn't be mistaken. This was exactly how Sena looked in his memory. But it was the youthful version. They had only been apart for 300 years. The goddess had left behind a child. What man could accept such a thing? And her head didn't seem very bright either. How could Sena have a child? The child said, "What are you thinking about, Master Eugene? I'm the familiar managing Senia's hall. So this was Senia's familiar? No wonder the old lady had that expression earlier. How do you know my name? Didn't you just register your name on the first floor? It turned out that all the familiars in AKC Leven were connected to the magic system. The little girl's name was Mel. Eugene wasn't surprised by this name, because Senia's surname was Meldine. But he didn't expect Senia would create a familiar that looked exactly like her. Eugene asked, "Are all the familiars here in human form?" The familiar said, "No, only I am special here." Rory Bell had said that magic that could create life was all forbidden, but Eugene didn't believe Senia would touch the forbidden. The familiar said, "I'm not truly alive. Lady Senia created my body with magic, and my spirit is sealed there," following the familiar's pointing direction. The scene before his eyes made Eugene's face full of amazement. He didn't understand what that thing actually was. The familiar said, "This is Lady Senia's lifelong magical essence, magic." Eugene said, "Shouldn't magic be a grimoire? That's not a book at all." The familiar said, "It is a book. Your thinking needs to keep up with the times." Eugene was speechless. Worthy of being a familiar created by Senia, this proud and arrogant little expression brimming with pride was exactly the same. Eugene said, "Did Senia have this personality before she went into seclusion too?" The familiar said, "Of course not. Lady Senia was noble and elegant, just didn't like to smile much." Eugene couldn't imagine that the little girl who used to wear all her emotions on her face could eventually become noble and elegant, and write magic that transcended the era, and create a familiar with the same personality as her childhood self. He couldn't help but walk forward. He wanted to find evidence that Senia was still alive from it. Eugene said, "You're Senia's familiar, you knew she would go into seclusion, right?" However, Eugene didn't get the answer he wanted. Mel didn't know Senia's whereabouts at all. The mages of Yarao didn't believe Mel didn't know either. They would come to search through Mel's memories every few years. Eugene understood that they searched through Mel's memories not only to find traces of Senia, if not because of Senia's magical status. They would even try every means to dismantle Mel if not for other reasons. From Mel's introduction, he learned Aklevan only made public the upper part of magic. Senia had extracted the middle and lower parts before disappearing. Mel could tell Eugene was very interested in Senia, plus Eugene was a descendant of the Reinhardt family, which made her very curious, because as far as she knew, Senia had never contacted the Reinhardt family since settling in Yarao. Eugene was also strange. According to the Reinhardt family records, Vermut had no contact with his former companions after returning from Heimuder. Their last meeting was still at Vermut's funeral. Eugene asked, "Did Senia ever mention her former companions?" The familiar said, "Lady Senia said Moran was an idiot, said Ennis was a snake-like woman." Eugene asked, "Did she ever mention Helmo?" The familiar said, "Of course she did. She said he was just a fool, bastard, annoying person, a useless idiot even when given opportunities. Every time Lady Senia talked about Helmo, she looked very painful." Eugene said, "Then, how did she talk about Vermut?" From Mel's words, Eugene learned that Senia never talked about Vermut, never praised him, never cursed him, never even commented on him. What exactly happened to Senia back then? Also, Eugene learned from Mel's words that Senia never truly smiled happily. The reason she had the painter add a smile for her was just because someone once liked to see her smile. Hearing this, Eugene instantly felt sad. Why didn't he survive that mere fatal wound back then? Now his good brother and girl were both hanging on the wall. How could he handle this alone? He couldn't help but want to pat Mel's head. After all, she looked too much like Senia. But Mel brushed his hand away. After all, some people might look like children on the surface, but were actually over 200 years old. Head patting was very rude to her. Senia's hall didn't just contain magic. There were also many magical tools that Senia had collected. For example, Senia's favorite staff, Akasha. Eugene of course recognized this staff. He was just surprised why Senia didn't take it with her. Akasha was made from the roots of the world tree. It was the world's strongest magic staff, one of a kind. After all, the proud elves would never agree to cut the world tree's roots again. Of course, there was a story behind this. Senia had once been abandoned in the elven forest. At first, the elves didn't pay much attention, just planned to casually raise her and see. But when Senia displayed extraordinary magical talent, it was different. Therefore, she also obtained world tree roots to make a staff, and even placed a red dragon's heart as the magic core. There were only 2 staffs in the world using dragon hearts as cores. The other was named Blood Red Mary. Its owner was a lich called Bell, the one who killed Helmo 300 years ago. Now it should be in the hands of a black mage who signed a contract with a reclusive demon king. Eugene said, "Can I pick it up and take a look?" Mel thought Eugene was being delusional. Akasha wasn't something just anyone could pick up and look at. It only recognized Senia as its sole master. Eugene didn't believe it. He used all his magic power, but got no response. What magic did that Senia use? At this time, the familiar said, "You seem to really like Lady Senia." Eugene said, "No, I'm just slightly interested." The familiar said, "Are young people nowadays also dishonest?" Eugene said, "I just simply like stories from the past." The familiar said, "Then you should also like that book." Then she turned around. ran to the bookshelf and took out a book, saying, "It's this book, The Great Adventure of Hero Vermut." This was a fairy tale book that recorded the great Vermut and his companions creating history together. Mentioning this book made Eugene very angry, because it depicted Hermod as a stupid idiot. But Mel said, "You misunderstood. What you saw should be the revised version, which is different from the original version. In the original version, Hermod was much stupider. He was a crude fighter with incomplete brain development and completely undeveloped cerebellum, who relied mainly on brute force. Later, to maintain the hero's image, it was slightly beautified. And here there are even more interesting things. Sena extracted her own memories and personally left them. That is the truest appearance of the companions who once adventured together, seeing the phantoms of his former companions. Eugene immediately started praising them. Mel thought he was talking about Vermut. Eugene said, "Never mind Vermut. Hermod was the team's visual appeal. Doesn't he have the charm of being tamed by a beast?" The familiar said, "How did you manage to say something so disgusting?" Then the two began to examine the magical materials. Sena's collection was on floors 12 to 14. The 13th floor mainly collected Sena's handwritten notes and research, but Eugene couldn't understand them. The 14th floor mainly collected research results and grimoires. Of course, Eugene still couldn't understand them. Mel suggested Eugene should experience the book magic. This was Sena's most famous masterpiece. Not only did it record the most suitable way to use rings, it could also enhance magical power, achieving multiple magical constructions from molecular structures, inputting and preserving magic in unconscious states, including the ideal driving method for rings. That was the essence of the book magic. Eugene listened in confusion, having no idea what she was talking about. The familiar said, "Fools can't understand it. If everyone could understand, it couldn't possibly be the greatest grimoire in history." Eugene said, "You say it's a book, then tell me how to read this book." The familiar raised her hand and said, "Very simple." Eugene copied her gesture and raised his hand. Although he could continuously input magic power, it seemed like nothing was happening. But in the next second, Eugene felt as if he was in the middle of a lake. In an instant, he began to fall rapidly. He couldn't distinguish between east, south, west, and north at all. This feeling was like a dream, but also not like a dream. Although conscious, he couldn't move his body. He just felt extremely powerless. This was an ocean of magic power. This was a scene Eugene had never seen before. Just moments ago at the bottom of the sea, in a flash he was floating in mid-air. As the tide receded, it revealed an enormous ring, which instantly split into even more rings. Dense and endless, infinite. Then Eugene began to fall rapidly. When he regained consciousness, he found himself already lying on the ground. Although he couldn't understand it, he felt greatly shocked. What exactly had Sena created? Mel beside him was now grinning mischievously. She thought Eugene performed quite well, just foaming at the mouth and fainting for 2.5 hours. The Blue Tower Master and White Tower Master had been directly scared to the point of wetting themselves back then. Eugene couldn't help but recall the White Tower Master's warning. It seemed that was the voice of experience. The familiar said, "What are your thoughts after experiencing magic?" Eugene said, "It's not a matter of thoughts, it's something very magical." Obviously, Eugene was just a fool. Sena had once reached the ultimate 9th ring of magic, but she didn't give up practicing. Through continuous exploration and research, she broke through her own limits and defined this new realm as the Eternal Void. Since then, the Eternal Void became the ultimate goal for mages, but no one had ever succeeded. The Eternal Void could split rings and form cycles. It was the ideal perfect driving method. Spell cooldown was halved, and power was doubled. A Sena at this level could completely fight the Demon King alone. This made Eugene fall into deep thought. Not just Sena, including Anis, Morin, and Vermut should all have become stronger. But why didn't they challenge the Demon King again? Something must have happened that he didn't know about. It must be. And just as Eugene got out of the elevator, he was stopped by the White Tower Master. This time, she was determined to get Eugene's Storm Sword. She even wanted to make some trades with Eugene. Seeing the situation, Eugene smiled crookedly. If you want to talk about this, he wasn't sleepy anymore, but he really wasn't interested in magic staff or anything like that. Rory Bell on the side said that thing was only fit for propping up table legs. The White Tower Master said angrily, "What are you doing causing trouble on the side?" Rory Bell said, "You already have 2 Spirit Kings. Why are you still so greedy?" The White Tower Master said angrily, "What's wrong with a woman wanting more men?" Actually, Rory Ann was afraid the White Tower Master would change sides after gaining power. After all, Yaro's political situation was now turbulent. But this woman clearly had no brains and shouldn't be a concern. If not for needing help, the White Tower Master would probably beat him up right now. At this time, Eugene said, "I thought about it. I don't want the magic staff." The White Tower Master said, "You talk as if I was going to give it to you. At most, I would just lend it to you." Eugene said, "Then forget it. Let's not make a deal." These two guys were really annoying. The White Tower Master said, "How about this? Lend me the Storm Sword for 1 week. I'll lend you the magic staff for 7 years." For the White Tower Master, the Wind Spirit King was a must-have. That was her lifelong pursuit, her eternal dream. At this time, Rolibion also mentioned that the White Tower Master had a very precious item. The White Tower Master quickly covered his mouth and said, "Can you shut up?" Eugene said with interest. "What is it? I'm a bit curious." Relibeon said, "It's the dark cloak." The White Tower Master said angrily. "I told you to shut up," Relibeon said. "As far as I know, you haven't used the dark cloak in nearly 10 years. Rather than letting it mold at home, wouldn't it be good to take it out for exchange?" Eugene said, "I don't want to exchange. I'm just curious what the dark cloak is." The White Tower Master said, "It's just an ordinary leopard print autumn coat, that's all." Relibeon said, "The dark cloak is a high-level spatial magic tool. It can directly transfer frontal magic attacks." The White Tower Master said, "It doesn't have such functions at all." Relibeon continued, "The cloak surface also has high-level protective magic. All attacks below the 5th ring are easily handled. The cloak also has an independent space inside, allowing random storage and switching of multiple weapons. It's so convenient." Eugene said, "Well, I'll take a bit of a loss and trade for this dark cloak instead, but I need to ask the main family first." The White Tower Master said, "You're thinking quite beautifully." Eugene continued, "I seem to have overused my brain a bit in AK Claven earlier, so I should find a place to rest first." Relibeon said, "What a coincidence, there's a newly opened bathhouse right ahead. How about we go to the 3rd floor to relax? I'll call to reserve spots right now." The scene immediately became awkward. The two directly ignored the White Tower Master. The thoroughly outmaneuvered White Tower Master had nothing to say and could only be forced to agree to lend the dark cloak to Eugene. Eugene said, "I know you're anxious, but don't be anxious yet. I still need to ask the main family first." At this point, the White Tower Master was nearly going mad. She really couldn't take it anymore. After learning about the situation, family head Geyer didn't object to lending out the storm sword, but someone from the Reinhardt family needed to oversee it. "So this is the dark cloak? Pretty cool, right? I'd probably look cooler wearing it than you do." Eugene could always easily infuriate the White Tower Master. She now got a headache just seeing Eugene. Not wanting to talk anymore, the White Tower Master hurriedly changed the topic. She was quite curious about who would come to oversee. From what Eugene knew, Jiwon would come, along with the black envoys of the Reinhardt family, who were called the Hounds. They were the guardians of the family rules. A year ago, Jiwon officially became one of them. The white envoys of the Reinhardt family only served the main family, but the black envoys served the name Reinhardt itself. Those who could join were all renowned powerhouses in the family's history. The Council of Elders behind them was on equal footing with Geyerd. Although the legends sounded mythical and somewhat absurd, Eugene had lived in the main family for 4 years and had never seen them once. This made Eugene very curious how powerful the legendary black envoys really were. At this moment, Eugene approached the White Tower Master, wanting to take off her dark cloak. The White Tower Master immediately pulled her clothes tight and said, "You actually want to strip my clothes off?" Eugene said, "Since you know, be more careful. If it gets snot on it, how can I wear it later?" The White Tower Master said, "Are you worthy?" Relibeon said, "You two stop arguing, they're here." As the car door slowly opened, a figure quietly appeared. Why would she appear here? The person who came was none other than Stair. "Stair, what are you doing in Yarao?" "Mother's birthday is coming up, so I came to shop for Stein, and I'm also curious about how you're doing." Eugene responded indifferently that he was doing well. While Stair clearly had many things to say, she couldn't say a single word at this moment. When he'll learn to understand love. At this time, Jiwon's figure also slowly appeared. He was still as spirited as ever. Following closely behind him was a burly old man, and you could tell at a glance that he was an extremely formidable character. His thick beard paired with his muscular physique. This guy must be connected to the big cousin somehow. Then another person walked out of the carriage. This was a very pure magician, probably here for the contract of the transaction. After them came a woman with an extremely powerful aura. It wasn't hard to see she was very confident in her strength. She walked with great authority and seemed to be very skilled in martial arts. She must be the person with the highest status here. She spoke, "It's been about 30 years since we last met, Relibeon. You've actually become the Red Tower Master." Relibeon replied modestly, "These are all just empty titles." Then she turned to ask Eugene, "You must be Eugene Reinhardt, right?" Although he didn't know her identity. Eugene knew that bowing at this moment was the right thing to do. "I am Carmen Reinhardt. By seniority, I should be your great aunt, but don't call me that." Eugene's gaze instantly became dazed. This woman looked so young, yet was actually family head Geyerd's aunt. How could such a big shot appear because of his matter? Why was she really here? Relibeon displayed excellent hospitality, leading everyone to the conference room for negotiations. Carmen was the previous family head sister. Because she couldn't get married, she stayed in the main family. She was now the captain of the Black Envoy Knights' 3rd Squad. The bearded old man was from a branch family and was now the 3rd Squad's vice captain. Magicians were very rare for the family and also from a branch family. He would preside over the transaction with the White Tower Master. As magic power flickered at his fingertips, a contract document formed by magic power appeared before the White Tower Master. The White Tower Master said, "What happens if the storm sword gets damaged? Why isn't this written clearly?" Carmen on the side responded, "If the sword is destroyed, you pay with your life." She believed the storm sword was priceless, and borrowing it required betting one's life. The White Tower Master said, "My life is also priceless, so there's nothing to discuss." Carmen slowly put a cigarette in her mouth and said, "If there's nothing to discuss, then there's nothing to discuss. I don't care. Whether to lend it or not is up to you." Seeing the negotiation about to fail, jail, the magician quickly stepped in. He said this was just a contract formality, and the White Tower Master needn't mind. If it really happened, they could discuss it then. The White Tower Master could see the main family was trying to extort her. They had identified her needs and were taking advantage of their creditor status to be presumptuous. At this moment, Carmen slowly pulled out a huge pocket watch, grumbling for them to hurry up, as she still had to go to the prison later to interrogate the imprisoned black magician. Beon realized she was here for Lide's matter, but they had already decided to handle it according to Yaro's laws. This seemed completely different from what Guyard had said, so what should be done now? Eugene was just shocked. She had both a big pocket watch and a small watch, held a cigarette but didn't light it. What kind of big shot was this? Carmen confidently immersed herself in her own world, as if everything here had nothing to do with her. Eugene didn't know how to speak up and could only use his eyes to signal the White Tower Master that the transaction must continue. At this moment, the White Tower Master thought, if I borrow the Storm Sword for 3 hours, I can get my cloak back in 2 months. The more she thought about it, the angrier the White Tower Master became, so she simply stopped thinking. She just wanted to sign quickly, finish quickly, and quickly get away from these calculating people. Just like that, Eugene got the dark cloak, and the White Tower Master got the storm sword she had been longing for. At this time, Carmen said, this style is not bad. I really like the fluffy fur collar. It reminds one of a lion's mane. It's just that the color has some flaws. If it were white, it would be even cooler. What was she talking about? What did this have to do with her? Seeing Eugene standing still, Carmen just looked at him like that. Stair on the side said, quick, take it off for her. She wants to try it on. If she wants to wear it, why doesn't she say so herself? How can a big shot say such things herself? Seeing that Carmen was already prepared, Eugene could only helplessly offer up the dark cloak. With a swoosh, the cloak was draped over Carmen. Carmen posed by herself, not forgetting to critique the cloak while doing so. The chest should have a lion ornament. The back is too plain. It could be embroidered with the family crest. Hearing this, the White Tower Master said, this is just a loan to you all. Don't mess around with it. How would a big shot pay attention to others' anger? She directly turned and left. The magician looked back and said, coming with us, Stair? Stair said, no, I want to stay with Eugene. Then the two went shopping on the street, preparing to pick out gifts for the second lady. Eugene took the opportunity to reveal to Stair about Xian's fondness for rabbit ears and uniforms, including those unspeakable books he hid under his bed. After all, Xian would become the family head in the future. If all the maids in the main family dressed as bunny girls, it would damage the family's image. But he also hoped Stair could consider Xian's dignity and pretend she discovered it accidentally. Stair said, so you don't like rabbit ears? Eugene said, who would like such weird things? They're so strange. Speaking of which, why do you want me to follow you when you're shopping? Stair turned to look at Eugene, her helpless eyes full of disappointment. Stair said, do you really want me to wander alone in a foreign country? Eugene said, it's not like you'd get lost. Stair said, your mouth says you're unwilling, but your body is quite honest. If you have the guts, don't follow me. Eugene looked embarrassed. His strong survival instinct made him shut up in time. Stair was very curious about how Eugene spent his birthday and whether he received any gifts. Eugene said Beon and Hera wanted to give him gifts, but he refused them. Hearing this, Stair asked, who is Hera? Is she a woman? Eugene said, yes, she's a magician from the Red Magic Tower. You didn't come to Yarao just to buy gifts, did you? What exactly are you planning to do with Master Carmen? Stair said, so you found out. It turned out Stair was pestering Carmen, wanting to become her follower. After all, Cheyenne would become the family head, and she had no interest in being family head, plus the second lady wanted her to go through an arranged marriage. Speaking of this, Stair secretly glanced at Eugene, but Eugene had no reaction, so she could only turn around and panic. If she could become a big shot's follower, she wouldn't have to worry about the future. The second lady also wouldn't be able to arrange her marriage. Eugene very much agreed with Stair's choice. If you have plans, go fight for them yourself. Lyde had also been taken back to her maternal family by the first lady, and was now urgently hiring a family tutor to continue studying magic. Everyone had a bright future. Stair said, let's not talk about unhappy things. Let's go eat. Eugene discovered that Stair had indeed grown up. He couldn't believe this 17-year-old girl was only 14 3 years ago. She was no longer the unremarkable girl from before. Meanwhile, on the other side, the black magician in prison had been beaten to within an inch of his life. But even under such brutal torture, he hadn't spoken. At this time, a figure in the darkness slowly said, Jafid had been practicing black magic for decades, but his talent was limited. If he died like this, his soul would belong to the demon race. So he took risks to contact Lyde, vainly hoping to use Reinhardt to gain power. This was all his personal behavior. Carmen said, I heard the succubus queen wasn't involved in this matter, so were you involved, Borzak Robes? He was now accused of luring a sunny youth into black magic. Although they had no evidence that he did it, he also had no evidence proving he didn't do it. After all, he didn't look like a good person no matter how you looked at it. He immediately retorted, slander, absolute slander. If I had done it, I would have made it seamless. How could I leave evidence? Do you want to hear what you're saying? He bowed his head in apology and cooperation with the investigation, only because his style had always been low-key and steady. What gave you the illusion that I was someone who could be manipulated at will? In the critical moment, Jiwen instantly flashed in front to block. In an instant, A murderous atmosphere permeated the entire space. Carmen said, "Looks like you're planning to fight first." Seeing the Black Tower Master so determined, she decided to compromise first. After all, torture and mental magic hadn't yielded any information. Rashly starting a group fight would be somewhat impulsive. The Black Tower Master also stopped being murderous, saying that recently the weather had been dry and everyone's temper was a bit hot. He absolutely had no reason to plot this matter and was very innocent. Carmen asked, "What about the other male succubus who planned to contract with Lid?" The Black Tower Master said, "He's not convenient to come himself right now. Are you sure you want to see?" Carmen said, "I don't care." Hearing this, the Black Tower Master smiled and directly raised his right hand. Pure evil power actually materialized into a shadow giant hand, instantly tearing through the space above. Then a demon's head was grabbed out. The Black Tower Master said, "He didn't die peacefully. Do you need me to wrap it up for you?" Then he deliberately dropped the head on the ground, saying, "Oops, my hand slipped." Carmen kicked the head in the air. The head instantly exploded with fresh blood. The flying blood splattered onto the Black Tower Master's face. Then Carmen also called the knights to leave, saying, "I hope this matter really has nothing to do with you. Also, don't contact Eugene Lionheart." The Black Tower Master said, "Only the reclusive Demon King can control me. If you have nothing else, you should go back and rest." Carmen didn't pay attention to the Black Tower Master's words. After all, there was currently no evidence that he did it. She suspected it was another black magician who had contracted with the reclusive Demon King, Amelia. This woman had always been coveting the Black Tower Master position, and was also trying to incite war between Nahama and the Hill Empire. If the Hill Empire prepared for war, then the Reinhardt family would also participate. Then the logic of seducing the main family's eldest son would be complete. Of course, this was currently just speculation without evidence. Carmen asked what would happen if they had fought with the Black Tower Master just now. Jiwon felt that except for Carmen, they would all die there. He really wasn't good at fighting magicians. Carmen was also worried about team casualties, so she didn't make a move. Otherwise, how could the proud Carmen be so approachable? Although Lid returned to the First Lady's maternal family, he would have to live under the Black Envoy's surveillance for the rest of his life. I heard the First Lady was hiring a family magic tutor. They couldn't rule out the possibility of the mastermind contacting Lid again. Jiwon never understood why a youth who loved magic so much would be obsessed with black magic. Hopefully, after returning to his maternal family, he could reform himself. Then the group prepared to return to the Reinhardt main family. Stair also ended her brief reunion with Eugene. Although reluctant to part, she could only wave goodbye. "Eugene Reinhardt, do you want to join the Black Envoy Knights? I heard the second squad captain is just short of a follower. Want to struggle 30 years less?" But actually, she was the second squad captain herself. "Thank you for your kind offer, but I just want to play now and don't want to work yet." At this time, there seemed to be some regret in Carmen's eyes, but it had been so long. Why? Was there still no news from the White Tower Master? She should still be working hard. If she succeeded, she would definitely come to show off. At this moment, there was a figure standing in the storm atop the White Magic Tower. The White Tower Master was holding the storm sword high, but clearly the progress wasn't good. Her face was flushed red, and she wasn't wearing clothes, because being naked could awaken bodily senses. Even though she was shivering from cold, she still gritted her teeth and persisted. All of this was to summon the Wind Spirit King. Unfortunately, she could only see the wind, not the Spirit King. Suddenly, golden lightning appeared in the sky, but she couldn't be happy about it. It was the neighboring Lightning Spirit King who had come. The White Tower Master said, "I didn't summon you. What are you coming out for?" The Lightning Spirit King said, "The Wind Spirit King asked me to give you a message. Go home quickly and stop acting like a hooligan on the tower top." The White Tower Master said, "I am history's strongest spirit summoner. Come out and face me personally. Why send messages through others?" The Lightning Spirit King just felt speechless and directly sent down thunder. The thunder struck the White Tower Master. After being struck by lightning, the White Tower Master collapsed to the ground. Actually, the Wind Spirit King would never contract with the White Tower Master. The Wind Spirit King wanted to go to the demon realm that no one had ever conquered. That was a promise he couldn't forget for hundreds of years. 10 days later, the White Tower Master appeared before Eugene, looking completely dejected. "I'm standing right in front of you. Tell me how I'm different from before. Taking on another male elemental king also requires moderation. You're deliberately mocking me here, aren't you? When I go crazy, even I'm afraid of myself." The trembling Eugene didn't dare to say anything. Then the White Tower Master kept cursing the Wind Spirit King. Mel, who couldn't stand it anymore, suddenly jumped down from her chair and walked angrily toward the White Tower Master. "You need to keep quiet here, old lady." This address instantly drove the White Tower Master mad. Eugene on the side exclaimed that he couldn't take it. When she went crazy, she was indeed terrifying. It seemed the contracting situation hadn't gone smoothly. "If the loan is for 7 days, then the Dark Cloak will be loaned to me for 10 years. If you return the Storm Sword now, I can give you a 10% discount. I'll count it as 9 years." Hearing this, the White Tower Master instantly froze. 9 years? The White Tower Master tremblingly handed the Storm Sword to Eugene. "This was really a huge loss. You must wear my Dark Cloak well. When it gets cold, remember to put on extra clothes. It will be afraid of cold air." After seeing off the White Tower Master, Eugene continued reading fairy tale picture books. This section told the story of the giant race. They were thick, big, and tall, Once the demon race's lackeys, they could easily trample cities and possess the testicles that Big Cousin longed for. But today, their good days were over, because standing in front was the great Vermut. The human knights were immediately filled with confidence, shouting loudly that they wanted to fight together and become famous as a group. But at the time, the only one on the field who could fight monsters was Vermut's companion, the warrior Hermod. Facing the thick, strong, and fierce giants, the two could still clearly distribute tactics. After all, those who could fight monsters were naturally also monsters. The battle didn't last long. The giant leader's neck was easily severed. The remaining giants were also cremated by the beautiful, kind, gentle, and lovely Lady Sena. Eugene said, "Was this fairy tale picture book written by Sena?" Hearing this, Mel felt speechless. Eugene said, "Because the adjectives describing Sena here are particularly numerous." Mel said angrily, "Who adds adjectives when writing a diary? If you keep talking nonsense, I'm going to punch you." Eugene put down the picture book. He was preparing to challenge the book magic once again. Mel felt Eugene still lacked self-awareness. But Eugene felt that challenging difficulties was basic operation. Whether successful or not, it would be more meaningful. Recently, Eugene had been spending time in AK-7. The Eternal Hole used a huge ring to lock infinite rings. If he could replace this method with white flame-style rings, the power would be greater. In his previous life, when he was still Hermod, he could create his own cultivation method with just cheap street goods worth 9.99, accelerating magic power eruption through internal explosions, easily severing the giant leader's limbs. His combat instincts even earned Vermut's admiration. Now Reborn, Eugene's talent was top tier. Even seeing the Eternal Hole now wouldn't make him lose consciousness. He could completely see clearly that absurd magic power movement. Then he could definitely recreate the Eternal Hole using the white flame method. Time flew by, and 2 years later, Eugene had reached 19 years old. He was still working as hard as ever. Mel said, "It's already mealtime. Why aren't you going to eat?" Eugene was indeed a bit hungry at this time, but he had inspiration right now, and was writing as if divinely inspired. After all, he needed to complete his thesis early. But Mel didn't want him to work so hard. Ordinary magicians needed decades to organize their magic thesis. She felt it was still too early for Eugene and that he should focus on cultivation for another 10 years. Eugene said, "Our Mel is really cute." This instantly made Mel blush, but she was actually over 200 years old. She felt Eugene should be more respectful in how he addressed her. So Eugene said, "Our grandma Mel is really cute. Maybe I should just kill him after all." But Eugene knew Mel actually couldn't bear to let him leave. In these 2 years, Reuniting had made Eugene his disciple. For 2 years, Eugene spent half his time in AK-7 and half his time learning magic with Reuniting. His level of effort was unmatched by anyone. Actually, Eugene's thesis could only be understood by himself, or rather, others could understand it but couldn't learn it. Eugene used white flame-style stars to replace rings to simulate the Eternal Hole. Ordinary magicians didn't know white flame style. Those in the main family who used white flame style couldn't understand it. Reuniting tried to simulate it using other methods and almost ruined himself. Now Eugene had reached white flame style 4 stars, then made magic power explode continuously, like in his previous life as Hermod. The rotating white flame style would firmly lock the surging magic power. This was ring flame style. Magicians who first encountered the book magic all frantically wanted to understand and explore further, but after realizing their limits, very few could persist. Therefore, in these 2 years, only Eugene persisted in coming to AK-11. Mel said, "After completing this thesis, will you leave Yarao?" Eugene didn't speak, but the answer was naturally yes. Eugene still had to search for traces of his companions, but Mel hoped Eugene could stay. As long as Eugene was willing, he would be the next Red Tower Master. The Mage Corps commander also thought highly of Eugene. He just happened to have an unmarried granddaughter. Also, the Crown Prince had shown goodwill toward Eugene more than once. Staying in Yarao was Eugene's optimal path to the peak. Mel didn't understand why Eugene wanted to leave. Even if he returned to Reinhardt, Eugene couldn't become the family head. Eugene said, "You're anxious. What am I anxious about? Why would I be anxious? Because I insist on leaving, so you're anxious. Fine, leave if you want. As if anyone would try to keep you. Anyway, I'm not human, just an emotionless familiar. It doesn't matter if you leave me in this boring, quiet, and meaningless place. But please tell me before you leave. Don't just leave without a word like Lady Sena did." Eugene said he understood. Eugene's straightforward answer left Mel speechless for a moment. This made Mel both ashamed and angry. "Eugene, you're really garbage. What kind of garbage am I? Dry garbage or wet garbage? Can't you focus on the main point, Eugene?" Mel loudly accused Eugene of being impolite, being so disrespectful to elders at such a young age. Actually, Mel didn't want Eugene to stay in Yarao because of her either. She felt she was designed based on Lady Sena's childhood period. So she always said childish things and did childish things. She hoped Eugene wouldn't mind. The real Lady Sena wouldn't do such things. She felt like an idiot saying these things, and Mel was very embarrassed about it. Eugene said, "Actually, the real Sena isn't much better than you." Mel felt Eugene was just talking nonsense. He had never met Lady Sena and was just imagining based on descriptions in fairy tale books. Facing such a fierce Mel, Eugene smiled gently and said, "I'll be able to complete my thesis soon, probably before summer ends. So what? Before leaving, I'll definitely come find you. I have a secret to tell you then." "What secret?" But Eugene didn't speak. Eugene turned to leave, saying, "Don't overthink it. I'll tell you everything then. During this time, the Magic Guild leader had also been pestering Eugene endlessly. Eugene was getting psychological trauma from him. Although the Magic Guild leader was also very capable, he was actually only interested in Eugene's talent. Unfortunately, Eugene wasn't interested in him, including his unmarried granddaughter. Eugene, you wouldn't want your magic thesis to fail, would you? He guessed Eugene's grades weren't ideal, so he said, my professional skills are solid, and my spatial magic is also very good. I can go anywhere. I'm qualified to help you check and complete your thesis. But he actually didn't even know what Eugene's thesis was about. Eugene had recreated the eternal hole and created ring flame style. Apart from the Red Tower Master, he hadn't revealed this to anyone. If he found out, wouldn't he be crawling into his bed every day from now on? This place wasn't suitable to stay long. He had to leave quickly. After returning to the Red Magic Tower, Eugene focused on practicing magic. Rolly Beyond discovered that even when Eugene used elementary magic, the power alone already far exceeded 5 rings. But currently, Eugene's magic limit was 4 rings. He still couldn't fit high-level magic into the eternal hole. Simply put, the capacity had reached its limit. After all, Eugene was currently only White Flame Style 4 stars and hadn't perfectly recreated the eternal hole. Perhaps when White Flame Style's realm improved, there would be a breakthrough. But there were also hidden dangers. After all, this was a newly created magic style. Each realm needed to be explored by himself. He had to be cautious. Learning that Eugene was preparing to leave Yarao, Rolly Beyond was also very curious about Eugene's future plans, because he couldn't tell him about his companions. Eugene could only say he'd first go to the Haru Kingdom to try the mystic Ice Emperor crab, because that was the country established by that fool Moran. Then go to Nahama to taste Scorpion Cactus, which was also where Ines last appeared. Rolly Beyond hadn't expected Eugene to be such a foodie. Yarao just happened to have flame lobster. He could try it first. Never expected that they would encounter Yaro's crown prince while having a meal. Inexplicably, the three formed a table together. The crown prince expressed great apology for disturbing their meal, so he'd keep it short. He hoped Eugene would stay in Yarao. He promised to make Eugene the leader of the court magic guild. Of course, only after he became Yaro's king in 10 years. This statement left Rolly Beyond speechless. The current king was still alive and kicking. Wasn't he risking his life talking like this? The crown prince hurriedly clarified that he was the first heir to the throne, and the king had already agreed. You could only say this crown prince was too young. Who would wait 10 years for his promise? So Eugene refused. You don't even understand my magic realm. It's still too early to talk about this now. The crown prince said, the reason I don't understand is because you've hidden it too well. But why hide it? Could there be reasons you have to hide? So he boldly speculated. He could see Eugene's body was full of magic power, and the magic quantity already far exceeded 5 rings. He continued asking, you understood the eternal hole in the book magic, didn't you? Eugene said, must I answer you? The crown prince said, saying that is worse than directly denying it. This way of speaking that neither admits nor denies was very much in line with Eugene's low-key and steady style. Although Eugene had no interest in the position of Mage Corps commander either, he no longer had worldly desires. Then the crown prince threw out another ace. As everyone knew, Sena completed 3 volumes of magic. Akleven only preserved the first volume. The remaining 2 had always been kept in the royal palace's treasury. Now both Eugene and Rolly Beyond couldn't sit still. But according to Mel, the remaining 2 volumes of magic were taken away by Sena. So when did the royal family start keeping them? Facing Eugene's question, the crown prince quickly explained that the royal family kept copies given by Lady Sena. The royal family didn't know where the originals were now. Of course, he wouldn't show them to Eugene now. He'd have to wait until he ascended the throne in 10 years. This guy was simply too confident, using empty promises to make people work for him for 10 years. Ridiculous. This morning, Eugene finally completed his thesis. Mel was amazed to discover that the Star Core and Eternal Hole were perfectly combined. Although still far from Senya's level, it was much more powerful than the current mainstream magic styles. But Mel couldn't feel happy, because this meant Eugene was about to leave. She could only express with a tsundere attitude that there was still much room for improvement, hoping Eugene would go back and study harder. But Eugene said he would leave the day after tomorrow. The day after tomorrow? With your personality, shouldn't you leave tomorrow? That sounds nice. You should be able to eat lots of delicious food. Eugene didn't say anything. He just looked at Mel with indulgence. 3 months ago, I told you I had a secret to tell you before leaving. Do you remember? I remember. Then would you tell others about the secret you heard? Upon hearing this, Mel immediately hugged her shoulders. She said, although I'm not human, you can't doubt my character. What big secret is it so shameful? I was reborn. Are you serious? I was reborn, and with memories from my previous life. Is this how people trick children nowadays? My previous life was called Hermod Davis. At this moment, Mel was shocked. She couldn't say a word at all. But seeing Eugene looking at her with a serious face, she instantly blushed and lowered her head to avoid his gaze. If Eugene was really reborn, then many things would make sense. Learning for only 2.5 years, yet understanding the eternal whole, and even converting it into a form that suited himself. After all, the foolish Helmo was a very special figure. The wise Senya grew up in the elven forest, taught magic by elves since childhood. The brave Morn was the son of a polar tribe chief, specializing in hands-on ability. The honest Annis was a candidate saint carefully cultivated by the Holy Empire. The great Vermut was a slave taken by demons as a sacrifice. To survive, he seized the demon's sword. The first time he held a sword, he killed hundreds of demons and dark mages, successfully leading the slaves to escape from Hermod. Mel had always thought that was legend told too exaggeratedly, but Eugene felt that should be the truth. Vermut was just a monster. In contrast, Hermod's story was much clearer. He wasn't like Vermut, an elite, nor did he have special background or power behind him. As a child, he barely survived the Demon Village massacre. With hatred toward demons, he became a mercenary. Through his own efforts, he gradually gained strength comparable to his companions. Mel said, although in fairy tale books he was the team's comic relief. Eugene said, can we not mention that fairy tale book anymore? At that time, I had almost no magical talent. To surpass Vermut, I focused on practicing martial arts. Compared to Vermut, Hermod was indeed ordinary, but in the public's eyes he was also undoubtedly a monster. What kind of monster is that? Couldn't even withstand mere fatal wounds. At this moment, Mel suddenly remembered Eugene had repeatedly praised Hermod's phantom as handsome. So she said, how did you have the face to say such things? Eugene said, this python-like suffocating charm. Can't you feel it even now? After joking, Mel was very puzzled why Eugene told her he was reborn. She really didn't know Senia's whereabouts. Eugene said, I'm not trying to gather information. You and Sena are really alike. Whether appearance or personality, you're really like her. Am I overstepping, Grandma Mel? I'll forgive you this time. According to what you said, you should be older than me. Do you think Sena really died? Mel certainly didn't think so. She felt Sena must still be alive. Eugene also firmly believed Sena wouldn't die quietly, including Morn and Anis. They should all still be living somewhere in this world. Therefore, no matter how long it took, Eugene would definitely find them. At this moment, Mel said she had something to say. She still harbored wariness about Eugene's rebirth, unless Eugene could swear in front of magic. So Eugene said, I swear, I Eugene am sworn enemies with gambling and drugs. Can you be serious at a time like this? I swear by my soul, I Eugene Lionheart am the reincarnation of Hermod Davis. As soon as he finished speaking, Mel's eyes along with the magic simultaneously burst into light, as if verifying Eugene's oath. Then Mel said that, since Lord Sena's disappearance, many mages had analyzed her in magic, but they still couldn't detect the information recorded deep within the magic. Including today's conversation content would also be recorded there. She also had intelligence to share with Eugene. Sena's disappearance had omens. A week before she disappeared, she suddenly cried out in pain and collapsed. Her other familiar had been killed. Mel had never seen Sena so angry, because this meant Hermod's grave had been invaded. Eugene had never thought he would actually have a grave, and didn't know who had dug it up. Mel had never told anyone about this. She didn't want to cause trouble for Lord Sena by saying something she shouldn't, but if Eugene was Hermod's reincarnation, she thought he should have the right to know. Usually those who died from lich curses would have their bones scattered. Eugene thought he wouldn't be an exception either. But since his soul could reincarnate intact, did it mean his body hadn't disappeared either? All this must be because of Sena. Eugene talked with Mel until deep into the night before leaving Akleven. Never thought he'd have a day when he couldn't find his own grave. It should be a place related to himself. Definitely not the reclusive Demon King's castle. Then it must be his hometown. Just as Eugene was thinking, the Black Tower Master appeared silently behind him. Actually, Eugene had noticed long ago, but kept pretending not to see. Unexpectedly, he still insisted on coming over to chat. The Black Tower Master knew Eugene was preparing to leave Yarao the day after tomorrow, heading to Luhale. This made him a bit worried, because it was very close to the demon realm Hermod. So what? The Black Tower Master said the Reinhardt family status didn't work well over there. Hermod had 2 demon kings, including some who didn't submit to the reclusive demon king's discipline. You mean the Destruction Demon King is preparing to start a war? The Destruction Demon King was the #1 demon king. In his previous life, Hermod had seen him in action once, but even now he couldn't judge what he had actually seen at that time. He only remembered a color moving on a vast plain. At that time, no one could say they'd go kill him if not for Anis's prayers stabilizing everyone. Their bodies might have shown unseemly symptoms of madness. The Demon King's thoughts were temporarily unknown. But demons were brutal by nature. Many of them were already tired of peace. To break the status quo, they might use any means necessary. Of course, some high-level demons had thoughts of rising in rank after all. Among the 5 demon kings, there were still 3 positions available. Eugene smiled lightly and said, fighting and killing isn't good. If they want to rise in rank, wouldn't it be nice for everyone to gather and draw lots? But Eugene knew clearly that his current self definitely couldn't beat high-level demons. Then there was no need to clash head-on. Just don't go to Luhale for now. He then thanked the Black Tower Master for the warning, saying he was preparing to change course to Nahama. The Black Tower Master said, if you're going to Nahama, then please be careful of the desert. Are you telling me to be careful of sand? No, I'm referring to Amelia. She has high freedom at the secluded Demon King's place. If you have conflict with her, you can take out this. Are you asking me to help you deliver a letter? Then I need to inspect the goods first. The Black Tower Master said, feel free. Eugene certainly wouldn't be polite, casually tearing open the envelope. However, After opening the envelope, it was actually empty inside. "You better give me a perfect explanation. The content doesn't matter. This is my handwritten letter. When you're being beaten, taking it out should save your life. Showing courtesy without reason means either treachery or theft." But the Black Tower Master said he just wanted to make friends. "You don't like men, do you?" Hearing this, the Black Tower Master was speechless. "Everyone has different preferences, let's just part ways here." Seeing the conversation taking a strange turn, the Black Tower Master quickly raised his hand to interrupt Eugene. He just saw potential in Eugene. Very pure thoughts, absolutely no improper intentions. Eugene said, "I'll take the letter, but I won't date you. If there's nothing else, I'm preparing to go home for dinner." Although the Black Tower Master occasionally jumped out to make his presence known, everyone knew that black mages definitely weren't good people. The next evening, the Blue Tower Master came as promised to attend Eugene's farewell party. He was very surprised that Eugene would invite him. For instance, those who liked getting under blankets, the ugly ones, and the annoying ones didn't come. Indeed, being human depends on peers for contrast. Although Eugene was a rare genius, the Blue Tower Master wasn't interested. Speaking of which, the Black Tower Master and Blue Tower Master had once studied under the same teacher, but whether in the past or now, no one had ever been able to understand the Black Tower Master's true thoughts. Decades ago, he was already a very excellent mage. Without accident, he would surely be the next Blue Tower Master. But one day he left alone. When he returned, he had become a black mage and took control of the Black Magic Tower. Perhaps it was for pursuing power. After all, human magic ultimately couldn't compare to demon kings. He said, "I heard you're planning to go desert touring. That's not exactly a tourist destination. It's best to hide your identity after entering." The Blue Tower Master bluntly said the desert was currently very chaotic. Several days later, Eugene, who had left Yarao, finally arrived at the desert. The dark cloak could not only change its appearance at will, but also adjust temperature according to the owner's senses. It was just that convenient, truly worthy of being the #1 divine equipment for home travel and deception. Give the White Tower Master a thumbs up. According to the map given by the mage, his current position was the easternmost part of Nahama. Just heading west should lead him to Turas, Helmo's former hometown. Over the past 300 years, the desert's territory had continuously expanded. Small countries like Turas had long been swallowed by the desert. This was also the desert sorcerer's method of invasion and expansion. Wherever sandstorms blew, they would go there to plant flags. Their ambition was as endless as sandstorms. Even after 300 years, there was still no restraint. It seemed this journey would definitely be exciting. Please wait a little longer. Sena, Anis, and Morn, I will definitely find you all. But at this moment, Eugene didn't know. His every move was already under someone else's surveillance. This guy really has guts, daring to cross the desert alone. If his head wasn't broken, then he must have something to rely on. Big Beard actually didn't want to have conflict with Eugene either, but the order he received was to drive Eugene out of the desert. It seemed he could only let Eugene experience the desert's hospitality. But at this moment, Eugene in the distance was rapidly charging toward them. They were clearly 800 li apart. Could he be discovered even at this distance? Eugene was coming over. Seeing Eugene arrive in an instant, Big Beard immediately panicked, but Eugene's speed was too fast, giving him no time to react at all. As they say, when in doubt, draw your blade first. There's no problem that a straightforward approach can't solve, just disguise as bandits. First rob his wealth, then strip off his clothes. Then all problems would be solved. I'm really a genius. Originally, Eugene just sensed someone following. Now the other party was clearly hostile. He had been gnawing on books learning magic in Yarao every day. He almost forgot. Real men need to clash head on. He went up and slashed at Big Beard, but Big Beard dodged by moving aside. Seeing he couldn't win, Big Beard quickly retreated, directly calling his subordinates to rush forward together. They instantly surrounded Eugene, but Eugene wasn't to be trifled with either. He was a man with his own BGM and Gatling. Not only could he cast instant magic, but it also came with tracking and positioning. He easily knocked them all to the ground. Eugene said, "Hey, who are you? Why are you following me?" Big Beard said, "Young hero, it's all a misunderstanding. We're just bandits passing by." Eugene smiled coldly upon hearing this. A bandit group with fewer than 10 people could actually use sword energy. Even his big cousin wouldn't believe such lies. But it didn't matter. Eugene was best at making people tell the truth. Eugene said, "Don't worry, I'll be very gentle. Take a deep breath, dizziness is normal." He disappeared. He used Flash Step. Big Beard looked completely confused and uneasy. The next moment, Eugene flashed in front of Big Beard, using sword energy so skillfully at such a young age. This must be a monster. The rising sand dust obscured Eugene's figure. Little Beard was afraid Eugene would cheat again and use the Gatling. He quickly summoned a magic shield to give himself armor. Sure enough, this time Eugene showed no mercy at all. Little Beard's magic shield shattered instantly. This definitely wasn't the power a one-ring magic bullet should have, but reality didn't give him time to think. Eugene attacked again. Big Beard saw he was about to die by the sword. He even saw his deceased great-grandmother waving at him, but Eugene gracefully withdrew. That's right, he was just playing. To look down on him like this. Big Beard roared in fury, swinging his sword and charging at Eugene, but it was all in vain. Shouting loudly didn't add critical hits. For Eugene, this was just a warm-up. He even had time to fix his hairstyle. The reason Eugene was so arrogant was purely because he was pent up. This was his first real fight since being reborn. He was far from satisfied. Unfortunately, Big Beard's strength was insufficient. Eugene could even carve patterns on his opponent without any pressure. To be carved with patterns by someone's sword, when had Big Beard ever suffered such humiliation? But this charged attack only hit air. It didn't hurt Eugene at all. At this moment, Eugene put away his storm sword. That's right, this wave really let him show off. Big Beard was instantly furious. His 30-year rheumatic legs were cured at this moment, then he swung the peak strike of his life. Unfortunately, Eugene dodged it by crouching low, then took the opportunity to punch him in the stomach. This time, Big Beard really saw his deceased great-grandmother. Fortunately, Eugene pulled him back to reality, giving him a strike to help him stay conscious. Eugene said, "Game time is over. Who are you?" He said, "I'm little Robert Downey." Hearing this, Eugene gave him another strike. Said, "I don't want to know your name." Big Beard was puzzled, but Eugene didn't give him time to think. At this moment, a subordinate woke up. To save Big Beard, he prepared to confess everything to Eugene. Big Beard acted quite tough, refusing to reveal who was behind him, but Eugene had ways to make him shut up. From the subordinate's words, Eugene learned they had received orders from someone called Madani, telling them to secretly follow Eugene. When necessary, prevent Eugene from stepping into the desert center. They didn't know the specific reasons. The current desert center was once Helmo's hometown. That was the source of sandstorms, most likely also the base of the Sandstorm sorcerers. Then they definitely didn't want foreigners to enter, especially a young master of the Reinhardt family. Forget it, can't think about it anymore. Eugene said, "You two go. You come with me." Eugene planned to have Big Beard guide him. Having a local to scout ahead should avoid many small troubles. Big Beard's heart naturally refused. But Eugene said, "If you don't cooperate, then I'll return to the Reinhardt main house. Say that the Desert Lord's subordinates disguised as bandits tried to rob Reinhardt treasures. This is Vilde, once worn by the great Vermut. And of course, the dark cloak on me. This is the precious treasure of Yaro's White Tower Master. She would definitely beat up all of you." Hearing this, Big Beard's heart trembled. He hadn't expected Eugene to be so shameless. Besides kneeling and obeying orders, there was no other way. Eugene smiled wickedly, never thought he'd have a day of intellectual crushing. Big Beard said, "Where do we go next? What happens next? You'll know what happens next." Regarding Eugene's cunning behavior, Big Beard really wanted to kick his balls, but his strength really didn't allow it. Eugene was simply too strong in terms of power. Big Beard quickly expressed he would absolutely obey orders, following his lead like couples. But Eugene suddenly approached at this moment, said, "Don't use idioms if you don't know how." The Kazani Desert was originally Taras's territory. It was the desert sorcerers who turned the land to sand and implemented invasion. Big Beard simply couldn't believe it. He thought his master commander, Kira, would never participate in such things. Eugene mocked him for being too naive. Big Beard was also from Kazani, barely surviving the Sandstorm. It was Commander Kira who took him in, so he instinctively rejected connecting Kira with sandstorms. And Eugene was, after all, a prodigy from a legendary family. If he broke into land that was being desertified, they'd have to kill him to silence him. This was exactly the reason to prevent Eugene from entering the desert. To find out the truth, Big Beard decided to step forward and protect Eugene, boasting that he also had some reputation in the desert. Whoever saw him would call him Big Brother. But Eugene scoffed at this. Big Beard said, "You don't believe it, you'll see when the time comes." Eugene ignored Big Beard's muttering. After all, Sena was still waiting for him ahead. Just then, an oasis suddenly appeared before their eyes. Based on experience, Big Beard judged there shouldn't be an oasis here. Eugene said, "Experience will deceive you, but magic won't." Big Beard said, "It's actually magic? Really? Oases in the desert are very precious. Could there be an ambush ahead?" Eugene said, "Want to know if there's an ambush? Go take a look and you'll know." Suddenly, a blade appeared from underground. Big Beard quickly warned him. In the critical moment, Eugene instantly leaped into the air, said, "Such an obvious trap, how could I possibly not see through it?" While in midair, Eugene summoned the storm spirit, directly launched a storm spiral. Big Beard was instantly blown down by the strong wind. Eugene's hairstyle was also messed up, so the enemies below were imaginable. This was weight he couldn't bear. Without surprise, he died. But where he fell, 2 sand mounds suddenly bulged up. Then more people followed one after another. They surrounded Eugene with hostile stares. At this moment, Big Beard finally found his sense of existence. He quickly ran over to protect Eugene, said, "This is Commander Kira's guest. You all quickly withdraw." Although Big Beard shouted loudly, obviously it had no effect. Eugene didn't want to waste time, and revealing one's identity was inherently very stupid. "We've all come this far. How could they possibly not know who I am? At times like this, you can't be cowardly. Show your bandit spirit." Hearing this, Big Beard directly drew his great sword. "Mere third-rate lackeys, Eugene can suppress them with one hand. Come at me together." Hearing this, they all rushed forward. Eugene immediately got excited. Finally, he could show his skills, facing their attacks. Eugene leaped up and easily dodged. then directly shot out a critical hit, then jumped back in midair, smoothly taking a double kill. Just that easy and pleasant. At this moment, one person thought he caught an opportunity and launched a sneak attack on Eugene. Unfortunately, he only struck Eugene's afterimage. Eugene's real body had already flashed behind him. Eugene easily dealt with him, but the crisis wasn't resolved yet. More people kept coming, but it was useless. As a prodigy of a legendary family, hiding some throwing knives in the cloak was very reasonable. But when one fell, two stood up and charged over. Eugene was also an old sword fighter, left hand using sword to easily block the frontal attack, right hand dealing with the sneak attack from behind. Then one sword resolved the frontal threat, simply too easy. Of course, he'd occasionally use hidden weapons too. This was the cunning person's fighting style, rejecting flashiness, precise movements, and elegant. Though their combat power wasn't high, they were all fearless of death. Big Beard on the side was directly stunned. They were all killed so quickly. The battle ended. Eugene didn't forget to recover his weapons. The ground was covered with corpses. Space magic was truly something he had mastered, carrying so many weapons when going out. In his previous life as Hermod, Eugene was skilled with multiple weapons, but back then he didn't know space magic. Going out relied entirely on human transportation. Anna saw this and said, "Trash Hermod, why do you need to carry so many weapons? And make more and pull the cart too." Hermod said, "None of your business." Sena said, "Anis, don't mind him, he's just traumatized by childhood poverty. Still thinks those broken things are worth money." Hermod said, "Weapons are a warrior's life, I may not use them, but I can't not have them, and Morin's axe is the heaviest. And you, don't you also put a bunch of holy water in there, you're just being pretentious." Sena, "What are you showing off about? Can't you use magic to put those things away?" Sena said, "Hermod, you big fool, you said you wanted to personally carry them yourself." Hermod turned to Vermut and said, "What are you laughing at, Vermut? Why don't you pull the cart?" Vermut said, "There's none of my stuff there. Why would I pull the cart?" Hermod said, "Yeah, you're so noble, you know space magic. You really should die, Vermut." Now thinking of his former companions was truly full of sweetness. If he had a dark cloak back then, Sena would definitely cry with envy. Eugene, coming back to his senses, coldly glanced at Big Beard. Eugene said, "The team fight ended, and now you come over." Big Beard said, "I was really trying to dissuade them just now." Eugene said, "I brought you hoping your master would be polite to me for your sake. Didn't expect you to be useless. You should just go wherever you're supposed to go, whether for other purposes or to find out the truth." Big Beard still planned to stay by Eugene's side. Eugene didn't care either. But the reason for bringing him definitely wasn't because traveling alone was a bit boring. But just then, the ground suddenly trembled. Eugene instantly leaped into midair. The fallen corpses suddenly glowed with bloody red light, as if something eerie was about to emerge. This was being used as sacrifices at summoning magic. Deep underground, massive magical power suddenly surged. Eugene was also shocked seeing this. A huge tornado struck. Fortunately, he could fly. But people's sorrows don't connect. Big Beard shouted, "Help! Help!" This suddenly appearing sandstorm was obviously abnormal. Strangely, it felt somewhat familiar. Back then, Big Beard didn't have a beard yet. It was this kind of sandstorm that destroyed his hometown. Thinking of this, Big Beard gritted his teeth in anger, directly charged at the tornado, swinging with all his might. This was Big Beard's highlight moment. Unfortunately, it didn't last long. How could a blade cut through wind? At this moment, Eugene was trying to escape using magic, but it was useless. He could only barely resist the tornado suction, and time was urgent. Something underground seemed to be trying to break out. This place was obviously not suitable for staying, but at this moment, Big Beard was already buried up to his lower half in sand, really useless at everything. Eugene used magic to pull him up and lift him into the air, though the process wasn't pleasant. Big Beard had escaped danger. However, Eugene was now in great peril, because he was right above a mouthful of fangs. The mouth closed, directly swallowing Eugene. Seeing this tragic scene, Big Beard thought he had harmed Eugene. As a desert warrior with abundant hair, valuing loyalty above all, how could he survive alone? Today, he must split open the sandworm's body and rescue Eugene. At this moment, Eugene was falling rapidly, about to reach the sandworm's stomach. Sandworms were creatures that specialized in internal circulation, with no excretory organs at all. It seemed he could only draw his blade and force his way through. Actually, this wasn't really dangerous for Eugene. A mere sandworm. Just stab it open and be done, passing through the sandworm's intestines without getting stained. The key was confidence and elegance. Then let's solo this dungeon instance. The sandworm with a breakthrough open behind it quickly fled. Actually, the summoning magic only summoned the sandstorm. The sandworm originally lived underground in this area. This creature usually lived deep underground in the desert, building underground mazes. Sena once said, "Mages all loved sandworms. When they needed a secret base, they would find a sandworm, then wait about half a month before killing it, easily obtaining an underground city." Eugene said, "Who would want to live underground? Are you planning to change profession to witch?" Sena said, "When will you illiterate grow a brain?" Had to say, still need to thank Sena's previous popular science. Otherwise, encountering this situation, Eugene really wouldn't have a solution. Maybe this underground city could even connect to Hermod's hometown. On the other side, the unconscious Big Beard finally opened his eyes. Before him were several people who obviously had bad intentions. His current state also seemed somewhat embarrassing. Regarding Big Beard's behavior, the other party expressed great admiration. Using just a small steel knife to solo a sandworm made them brothers have to work hard to save him. Of course, this wasn't charity. They just wanted to know some information. Why did that Reinhardt young master insist on coming to this barren desert? Also, why did Big Beard, this lackey of Trash Commander Kira, betray and become Eugene's guide? When he appeared, he was clearly there to rob. Was he so easily turned? Big Beard certainly wouldn't confess honestly. He now just wanted to know if that Oasis illusion and Sandstorm were all created by their magic. The other party said, "Seems you haven't figured out the situation yet. Sandbinding technique." Suddenly, Big Beard felt pressure all over his body. The other party said, "There's an old saying in Yarao, those who understand the times are heroes. I think you don't want to suffer physical pain either." Facing the other party's aggressive pressure, Big Beard chose to curse them head on. He now seriously suspected his hometown was destroyed by this bunch. The other party looked displeased, said, "You really are refusing a toast only to drink a penalty," then showed an evil smile, then clenched his hand, strengthening the sand-binding technique. Big Beard cried out in pain. Another person said, "See, asking is pointless. Still not cooperating. Just shoot him." "Shoot him? Can't we try asking again?" While they were discussing, a handsome guy quietly appeared behind them. It was that Reinhardt young master. They were shocked by Eugene's sudden appearance, hurriedly activated their Byakugan to look into the distance, only to see that their large group of subordinates had already been completely wiped out. At that moment, the Big Beard shouted, "Help me!" Eugene said, "I know you're in a hurry, but don't panic just yet. Which one of you wants to go first? I have many things to do. I'm pressed for time." The opponent said, "Who dies first is hard to say." Then he began casting Quicksand Torrent, just when it seemed he would be engulfed by the quicksand. But Eugene remained completely calm. He simply pulled out a fragment of the Moonlight Sword and casually tossed it, then calmly put on his hood. The crisis was resolved. Elegant. Truly elegant. When the dust settled, except for being a bit dusty, Eugene was completely unharmed. Without any magical fluctuations, he had dispelled the magic. They couldn't understand the principle at all, but they not panic. 3 against 1, they felt they had a huge advantage. Since they decided to fight, then life and death would be left to fate. Sandstorm burial. At the critical moment, Eugene once again brought out a fragment of the Moonlight Sword. Actually, besides possessing anti-magic properties, it was also a rare hidden weapon. It directly hit the opponent's forehead. The opponent collapsed immediately. Eugene gathered all his magical power and burst forth instantly, then followed with a flash step. This was a palm strike descending from heaven, but they didn't intend to sit and wait for death. While Eugene wasn't paying attention, they launched a sneak attack from behind, but Eugene easily dodged it and gave Eugene a whip strike. He could actually hide a whip inside his cloak. While complaining about this, he didn't know his death was approaching. Eugene showed no mercy and finished him off directly. 1 remained. Eugene decided to have a chat with him first. After all, he still had many things he needed to figure out. But looking at his condition, he didn't seem willing to cooperate, to show politeness. Eugene gave him a cut first, saying, "Are you going to confess now or after taking a few more cuts?" Unexpectedly, he was quite stubborn, pretending he knew nothing. Eugene wouldn't indulge his bad habits. He casually pulled out another throwing knife. The throwing knife hit him again. Eugene said, "Want to bet on how many more throwing knives I have?" He was truly terrified and could only speak, "It's Amelia Morven. This is Lady Amelia Morven's underground city," according to his confession. This underground city was built 10 years ago. Its purpose was to accelerate land desertification. But 6 years ago, the depths of the underground palace suddenly collapsed. Inside, there was even an iron door that couldn't be opened no matter what. So Amelia Morven would often come here, but she never managed to open that door. After getting the answer he wanted, Eugene decided to be merciful to the end. 1 strike right between the eyebrows let him sleep peacefully. The Big Beard was now free. However, upon hearing this was Amelia's territory, he was terrified. Although Amelia wasn't here now, there was always the risk of her returning. He hurriedly advised Eugene to make a strategic retreat, but Eugene saw through it all. He had made a mess of this place. Retreating now would obviously lead to being tracked, since he'd have to face her sooner or later anyway. Might as well go inside and investigate. Who knew the Big Beard was still silently following behind, unwilling to leave. Eugene had saved his life twice, so the Big Beard intended to guard Eugene, swearing to carve out an escape route for Eugene even if it cost his life. Eugene couldn't help but sigh. This person really wasn't capable but loved to meddle. No matter how much he was advised, he wouldn't leave. Having no choice, Eugene decided to convince him with action. He flashed directly behind the Big Beard. 1 punch put him peacefully to sleep. Then he left that place. 6 years ago, the underground palace suddenly collapsed. At that time, Eugene was exactly 13 years old, also precisely when Helmo's relics were discovered. Was there any connection between these events? Could it be that Amelia had always wanted to dig up his grave? It seemed that deep pit below should be Helmo's tomb. Suddenly, he stepped into empty space. Eugene fell down. Eugene, who could fly, had already started flying. But Eugene discovered there was indeed a door below, and it was already open. It must have been Amelia's doing, since he was already here. He had to go in and take a look no matter what. Broken walls and ruins. Devastation everywhere. Who had fought here? Could it have been Sena? Eugene had many questions, but the scene before him left him completely stunned. Who was this handsome and heroic statue? This was too handsome. Truly worthy of me. Rugged yet refined and elegant. Hermod Davis, star calendar 421 to 459. Idiot, bastard, useless, childish, but brave, honest, reliable, and great. In memory of you who sacrificed yourself and died first for everyone's sake. Sena, you're really damn annoying. If you're so good with words, why didn't you say this when I was alive? I'm already dead. Who's going to hear it? You're really damn annoying, Sena. After a moment, Eugene finally stabilized his collapsed emotions. It must have been 200 years ago when she sensed the familiar's death. Sena engaged in fierce battle with the invaders here. At that time, she should have been the strongest mage in this world. But even so, the tomb still became ruins. Could Sena have been defeated and died here? But earlier in Yarao, he clearly encountered her phantom, so Sena definitely didn't die. She must have been injured and went into hiding. Yes, that's it. Then who exactly could defeat such a powerful Sena? Was it the reclusive Demon King or the Destruction Demon King? Although he was reborn, Eugene still couldn't figure out the answer. His former companions should have all cried while hugging pillars here, but he still couldn't imagine that guy crying. Even after defeating powerful enemies during their journey, that guy would still arrogantly blame himself there, reflecting on how he hadn't done well enough. So there was a reason Hermod always wanted to beat him up. He was just being pretentious. Anna said, "Hermod, can you please stop going crazy?" Hermod said, "You think the same way inside, don't you? You also want to beat him up, don't you?" Anna said, "As long as there's light in your heart, it will be filled with love. Don't be so violent, Hermod." Hermod thought, these two guys are teaming up to disgust me. Eugene, lost in memories, also began being sentimental. Today he shed more tears than in his entire lifetime. But just at this moment, the wandering Eugene discovered there was actually a door ahead. Would his own coffin be inside? He pushed open the door. Unexpectedly, there was another door inside, and there was a guard here. Eugene asked, "Who are you? Why are you here?" However, the other party said nothing, just stood there stiffly. He felt no life force from him. Was he a death knight? Eugene said, "I'm talking to you, can't you understand?" At this time, the other party spoke. "I am Hermod Davis." Upon hearing this, Eugene was completely stunned. Angrily said, "Do you think you're being funny, you soulless death knight? Wait, this is Hermod's tomb. Could this death knight's body be?" Eugene shouted, "Bastard, take off your helmet right now. I told you to take off your helmet. Hurry up." Then Eugene directly attacked him, truly worthy of his former body. Even though it contained a different soul, his combat power was still above standard. He had even solidified a magic shield. It seemed he wasn't a character that could be easily dealt with. The Death Knight also launched an attack. The attack was blocked by Eugene's sword, but it sent Eugene flying several meters. Such incredible strength. Eugene felt both his hands were aching faintly. The one who created this Death Knight should be Amelia, but no matter what kind of soul she stuffed inside, Eugene's current strength couldn't defeat it. It would require someone as strong as the family head or the Black Knight. But so what? If he did nothing, just let this guy wander around with his corpse, then what would be the meaning of rebirth? As for whether he could actually win, that could only be known after fighting. Eugene struck down with all his might, but he dodged with a flash step. Eugene wasn't discouraged at all. Pulling out weapons from his cloak, the Death Knight blocked with his sword, saying, "You seem to carry a lot of plastic toys. What use are they?" Eugene said, "You talk too much. Just watch me beat you up." The Death Knight said, "Youthful confidence is good, but it can't bridge the gap between you and me." Then he flashed to Eugene's front, provocatively said, "Rookie, you're done for." Eugene said, "You think this is over?" with a flash of light. The Death Knight said, "Impossible. He couldn't possibly dodge that." Looking at Eugene's unchanged expression, the Death Knight now had many questions. Eugene thought, it seems his soul isn't some powerful character either. He doesn't even know about parrying. It's just that this strength is really too powerful. It seems this battle can't be dragged out too long. Although Eugene wanted to end it quickly. But after fighting for so long, he hadn't even broken through the defense, and Eugene's body was obviously reaching its limit. After each collision, he felt his bones might crack at any moment. But as long as his consciousness remained clear, Eugene could keep fighting. The long sword in his hand shattered again. Eugene resolutely drew the storm sword. All his magical power instantly flowed into it. The battle had just begun. Eugene was already getting heated up, knowing he couldn't win but insisting on fighting anyway. Eugene shouted, "Gatling's art of all beings equal." Then attacks struck the Death Knight one after another. Although they didn't break through his defense, they finally gave Eugene an opportunity. He struck with his sword. This sword carried 300 years of skill. Could you block it? The Death Knight's mask split in two and fell to the ground. Eugene said, "You trash. Hurry up and turn around so I can see." However, when the other party turned his head, Eugene was stunned. Seeing his former self, Eugene was filled with mixed emotions. Truly a rather handsome man in the local area. Although the soul inside was extremely ugly, it couldn't hide that handsome and rugged appearance. The Death Knight said, "He has already dead, yet you still curse." He flew into a rage, then threw his sword. A mere flying sword could be dodged with a head tilt, but in the next instant, the Death Knight appeared right in front of him. One punch hit Eugene. Eugene was knocked back several meters. He had just thrown away his sword, yet his speed increased so much. Was that sword a seal? Eugene didn't know what to do. To kill the Death Knight, he had to destroy the core in the heart. Other methods couldn't harm the Death Knight at all, but overthinking was useless. Anyway, chopping him up would definitely kill him. Before he could think too much, the Death Knight charged again. Eugene struggled to barely defend himself. Eugene threw Gatling magic bullets again, but the opponent was too fast, impossible to hit. This beast-like alert posture, plus the claws formed by magic weapons wrapped around his hands and feet, wild fighting style, and the madness of losing reason. A werewolf. Amelia had put a werewolf's soul into Hermod's corpse, but the werewolf gave Eugene no time to think, directly lunging at his face. At the critical moment, Eugene once again brought out the Moonlight Sword fragment, but the werewolf's magic was too strong. The Moonlight Sword fragment couldn't completely dispel the magic, could only barely weaken some of the magic's power. In that case, he could only face it head-on. He lunged fiercely. One claw swiped at Eugene. Eugene, unable to dodge in time, was inadvertently scratched by the werewolf, but Eugene finally found an opportunity. Holding the Moonlight Sword fragment, he struck the werewolf's core with his palm. The werewolf cried out in pain, howled loudly. Eugene looked at his chest. The magic wrapping around the armor had weakened. Then, it was now. Eugene unhesitatingly thrust his sword toward his chest, again threw Gatling magic bullets, all hitting the werewolf. The Moonlight Sword fragment separated from the werewolf's chest, then fell to the ground. Eugene said, with such a big tumor growing on your chest, you still have the nerve to call yourself Hermod. The werewolf had a big tumor on his chest. This made him seem a bit shy, but Eugene mocked that thing for growing so peculiarly. How could the werewolf endure this? He directly charged up for a ramming attack, knocking Eugene to the ground. The werewolf obviously didn't want to let Eugene go easily. Eugene immediately threw up. The scene instantly became somewhat wrong. The werewolf said, now reorganize your words. Although he no longer had the strength to fight, Eugene instinctively raised his middle finger. This completely enraged the werewolf. The werewolf pressed him down with both claws. Obviously, he wanted to tear Eugene directly in half. Eugene knew he had to do something immediately, otherwise he might really die. In his previous life as Hermod, he still had one killing move, but using a killing move with his current physical condition would be fatal. Just as Eugene was preparing to risk everything, the big beard came running from afar. Seeing Eugene in danger, the big beard directly drew his desert treasure sword. Noticing someone charging over, the werewolf lifted Eugene with one hand, then directly threw Eugene out. Eugene crashed into the wall. That probably hurt quite a bit. The big beard thought, how dare you ignore me? You probably haven't been cut before. He struck down with his sword, but his sword shattered directly. Such a hard desert treasure sword just broke like that. The big beard said, run quickly, I've caught him. Eugene said, you're obviously the one being caught. What are you trying to show off for? But the big beard was still quite loyal. The next moment, the werewolf also threw the big beard over, directly crashing into Eugene. Both were sent flying, both were rookies. No one should laugh at the other. The big beard was ready to buy Eugene time to escape, but Eugene discovered there seemed to be another way out. At this moment, there happened to be a door behind them. The werewolf wasn't panicked at all, claiming no one could open that door. Hearing him say this, Eugene wanted to try it even more. This was his Hermod's tomb after all. Just as Eugene touched the stone door, the necklace on his chest faintly glowed. The stone door behind them suddenly opened. Under the werewolf's disbelieving gaze, Eugene and the other were instantly sucked into the door, leaving only the werewolf outside. On the other side, the big beard fell directly to the ground. Before he could see the situation clearly, Eugene directly knocked him unconscious. After all, it would be safer if he didn't get involved. Although the big beard hadn't helped at all, Eugene didn't want him to be killed for seeing things he shouldn't. At this time, the bright light in the distance caught Eugene's attention. Why would Vermut put this thing here? 300 years ago, they discovered a mysterious cave. Ancient writings that no one could understand were carved on the walls. Then, in the depths of the ruins, they found the Moonlight Sword. Hermod said, most of my weapons are broken. From now on, this sword is mine. Do you have any objections? Unfortunately, the Moonlight Sword didn't acknowledge Hermod, didn't even let him touch it. It seemed that after Hermod's death, Vermut missed him dearly. He actually placed the Moonlight Sword here. Truly worthy of you, Vermut, such filial devotion. The Holy Sword's power was all used for special effects, but the Moonlight Sword was different. It looked simple, but was incredibly powerful. Who would have thought you were such a devoted son, Vermut? Actually leaving the Moonlight Sword for me. When he first saw the Moonlight Sword, the moon shining on it was in full moon state. Now it had changed to a new moon. Had its power weakened? He wondered if it would react to the fragments. Oh no. After using that fragment against the werewolf, he forgot to pick it up. But that werewolf looked so stupid, he probably wouldn't notice that fragment. But he'd have to face him again when going out. And also guard against Amelia, who could return at any time. Time was running short for Eugene. No matter why Vermut put you here, but from now on you'll take the surname Eugene. In my previous life you ignored me. In this life you still fell into my hands. So Eugene reached out toward the Moonlight Sword. However, just by touching the moonlight, his magical power began surging uncontrollably. Even weakened to this extent, you still resist me. Times have changed. Eugene gripped it forcefully, but was bounced away by the Moonlight Sword's power. power, fell directly to the ground, but he didn't let go. "Let's see how you escape from my grasp this time." Then Eugene eagerly drew the storm sword. As expected, the moonlight sword now had no blade. At this time, the new moon began glowing. Countless fragments began gathering, wrapping around the sword hilt. The new moon actually assembled into a blade. "Truly worthy of you, moonlight sword." As soon as the blade formed, magical power eagerly flowed into the moonlight sword. Had it finally acknowledged me? Although the moonlight sword's power was impressive, with Eugene's current strength it was still difficult to wield. Still so domineering with just the hilt left. Then into the cloak you go. Before leaving this room he needed to check the coffin. The coffin was indeed completely empty, but words were carved at the bottom of the coffin. "I hope we can meet someday in the world you expected." This was Senya's handwriting. What exactly happened back then? On the other side, the werewolf was still confused about the stone door. The stone door that he had tried countless times to open or destroy. He didn't understand how Eugene got in. Both helmet and breastplate were shattered. If the master discovered this, it would be terrible. He had to capture Eugene and present him to the master. But just then, Eugene walked out. Eugene said, "You're still here? Not going home for dinner?" The werewolf asked, "How exactly did you get in?" Eugene said, "Did the big tumor on your chest compress your optic nerve? Didn't you see I just opened the door and went in?" The werewolf suppressed his anger, demanding Eugene explain the situation inside. But Eugene just smiled mysteriously, his face full of secrets. The werewolf, feeling he was being played, couldn't stand it. But today was different from before. Eugene had now been strengthened. Eugene directly pulled out the moonlight sword. With just one strike, he shattered the werewolf's claws, making the werewolf turn and flee. His clear eyes were now full of question marks. His huge mass of magical power just disappeared like that. Actually, Eugene wasn't feeling well either. Just one sword swing nearly left him breathless, his vision darkening, body weakening. But the power was indeed strong, since he couldn't understand Eugene's moves. The werewolf decided to temporarily conserve magic, first compete with Eugene in speed. Eugene naturally showed no fear. After all, he now had dual wielding. The werewolf jumped directly on the spot, leaping to Eugene's front. Eugene immediately swung the moonlight sword. Seeing Eugene swing the moonlight sword, the traumatized werewolf quickly performed a tactical retreat. Eugene said, "You think you're safe just by dodging?" Storm sword, Vild, Gale. Sharp sword energy instantly surrounded the werewolf. The whipped-up wind rushed straight to the tomb ceiling, but it wasn't over yet. The scattered rubble was actually stopped in mid-air by Eugene's magic. Like cannonballs, they all shot toward the werewolf. If he weren't injured, he could have finished him off immediately. At this moment, Eugene's whole body burst with magical power. The burst magical power transformed into a giant hand, instantly grabbing at the werewolf. At the critical moment, the werewolf forcefully twisted his body, finally dodged Eugene's attack. But the armor on his body wasn't so lucky. He roared in anger. That was armor Amelia gave him. Eugene had destroyed it again and again, absolutely unforgivable. Eugene didn't intend to let him go. In an instant, the giant magic hand attacked again. The werewolf struggled to cut through the giant hand, but Eugene had already advanced to the werewolf's front. Such close distance, wasn't this delivering food to the werewolf? However, at this time Eugene summoned moonlight sword fragments. The fragments had recovered their magical power and made sizzling sounds. Since he had mastered the moonlight sword, naturally the fragments could be used freely, although it only caused momentary paralysis to the werewolf. But this time was obviously enough. Eugene directly took the opportunity to thrust at the werewolf's chest. The werewolf flew out several meters, crashed directly to the ground. After the battle, Eugene finally couldn't hold back. This fight nearly wore him out completely. The final strike depleted all his magical power. Without magical power, the moonlight sword's light also disappeared. This damn sword, when will it learn to fight monsters by itself? Looking at Hermod's corpse in the distance, Eugene was filled with mixed emotions. Although the modified core was shattered, it might still be used by Amelia. Black mages had incomprehensible bottom lines. If corpses fell into their hands, they would definitely find ways to exploit them. It seemed he could only completely destroy Hermod's corpse, so he directly thrust down with his sword. However, at this moment Eugene stopped. What was happening? Why couldn't his body move? It was like being bound by invisible force. She had appeared after all. Amelia. Although Amelia was ugly, she was ruthless and merciless. She actually planned to turn Eugene into a scarecrow. First step was to bury Eugene entirely in the desert. Force him to keep his eyes open. It wouldn't be long before his eyeballs would rupture. His body would also dry up like tree branches. Second step would be to break his legs, then twist them together and pin them with steel needles. Finally, choose a long steel needle starting from the left fingertip through the shoulder, all the way to the fingertip of the other hand. This way he could maintain an arms spread position forever. Too bad by then Eugene's eyeballs would have ruptured, unable to see his own artistic appearance, but he would stand forever in the desert until she got tired of looking. Who told Eugene to destroy her pet, so Eugene would become her new pet. At this time, Eugene wanted nothing more than to perish together with her. Unfortunately, the power gap was too great. He couldn't even move now. He could only mock Amelia's poor taste. The pet she kept didn't bathe regularly. The corpse smelled particularly bad. Of course, there was a price for saying this. Amelia punched him flying 2 meters away. Amelia said, "If you can talk, then say more." That way you'll die faster too. Although Eugene was once again beaten to vomiting blood. The restraints on his body were also released. Unfortunately, he was facing Amelia. Even going all out couldn't kill her, so he could only engage in verbal sparring. Eugene said, "Auntie, you know Borzak robes, right?" Amelia said, "Let's not talk about Borzak first. Who are you calling Auntie?" Eugene said, "Details don't matter. He's my dear close friend. This is a letter he wrote to you. He told me to be sure to deliver it when I see you." At this time, Amelia looked fierce. She didn't expect Eugene could establish this connection. Borzak said, "As long as you have this, you won't kill me." Amelia said, "You seem to have some misunderstanding." Amelia had received Borzak's help before. As payment, Amelia had once promised him one request. This was a favor Amelia owed, with enormous value, but Borzak had never responded. Who would have thought he would give this opportunity to Eugene? Eugene could use this to ask Amelia to spare his life, but some things still needed to be explained clearly. But Eugene had different thoughts at this time. He said, "Then Aunt Amelia, please commit suicide." Upon hearing this, Amelia was also speechless, saying, "Is your brain completely undeveloped, or is your cerebellum incompletely developed? Although I won't kill you, making you disabled is unavoidable. How did you know about this place? How did you come here? Everything must be explained clearly." "Don't worry, I'm very good at interrogation." At this time, Eugene didn't know what to do. Fighting was definitely impossible, black magic was all dirty tricks, and Amelia seemed very impatient too. Even bringing up the Reinhardt family's reputation probably wouldn't work, because demons don't buy that. Amelia had obviously lost patience at this time. Although she couldn't kill Eugene, playing around was still possible. At the critical moment, Amelia suddenly froze, then turned back in disbelief. It was actually Hermod's corpse standing up again. Eugene was furious. "You keep using my body back and forth. Do you pay rent?" At this time, Amelia had already knelt on one knee, because she had recognized the visitor's identity. It was the reclusive Demon King. The reclusive Demon King's arrival saved Eugene's life. He understood Eugene quite well, constantly observing in secret through Borzak's eyes, and obviously knew Eugene's purpose for coming here. Yet still teased Eugene about whether he came to offer flowers to his ancestor's friend. Then, like a tour guide, he introduced nonchalantly, "This is Hermod Davis's tomb." Although he had the reputation of being dull, he was dear Vermut's most valued partner. The reclusive Demon King actually called Vermut dear. This one sentence angered Eugene. The reclusive Demon King said, "I understand your hostility toward me, but Vermut and I truly understand each other, and are each other's most important bonds." At this time, Amelia caught the key point. She only then realized Eugene was actually a Reinhardt clan member, but she never expected the reclusive Demon King would possess an undead for him. Vermut had been dead for 300 years. Just for an ordinary descendant, he would interfere with her freedom. How could Amelia accept this? But for the reclusive Demon King, whether Amelia accepted it or not didn't matter. He didn't care what Amelia thought. After all, a dog is a dog, even if usually not chained. It was still his reclusive Demon King's dog. Amelia was now also triggered. She didn't expect she couldn't even compare to an undead who died 300 years ago, because of Vermut's relationship. The reclusive Demon King always treated Reinhardt clan members as friends. Too bad the Reinhardts never paid attention to him. Eugene said, "What exactly do you want to do?" Amelia said, "How rude, you should be polite when speaking to the Demon King." Too bad no one paid attention to Amelia's words. The reclusive Demon King continued talking to himself. The agreement between him and Vermut had lasted 300 years. Even though the Reinhardts showed him no respect whatsoever, he didn't mind. But he was the reclusive Demon King, the king above all demons. Just his aura made Eugene feel suffocated. He told Eugene to give the Reinhardts a message. "If you don't fear me, I will no longer respect you either." This was clearly a warning to the Reinhardts. Vermut had made an agreement with the reclusive Demon King at the cost of his freedom. Obviously, that agreement was about to expire. The war that Vermut had stopped would soon begin again. It was also time to make a new agreement. But who could replace Vermut? Eugene asked, "What exactly is the content of that agreement?" The reclusive Demon King said, "You have no right to know. Your soul, your existence, is because Vermut made an agreement with me. That's why you could be reborn 300 years later." Then the reclusive Demon King paid no more attention to Eugene, turned and ordered Amelia to return to her dungeon. But Amelia still wouldn't give up. Her pet was killed by Eugene, and he opened that door she could never open. Hearing this, the reclusive Demon King turned to look at the door's location. Then, he actually teleported Eugene and the other directly to the door. He simply raised his right hand. The solid stone door instantly turned to sand. Inside the door, only the big beard was still sleeping. Except for Hermod's coffin, there was nothing else. Seeing this, Amelia had nothing more to say. But in Eugene's view, if even rebirth was the enemy's charity, how exactly should such a Demon King be killed? Since learning the truth about his rebirth, can't fight, can't win, Eugene became completely depressed. After handling everything, the reclusive Demon King left gracefully. Amelia was still marveling at Eugene's luck. Hermod's corpse also couldn't be completely destroyed. In the end, Amelia still took it away. It looked like it would definitely be made into a death knight again. And obviously she didn't intend to let Eugene go. As soon as the agreement expired, she would capture Eugene and turn him into a scarecrow. At this time, Eugene's heart was incredibly complex. He really didn't understand. Furious Eugene can only rage helplessly. If that guy Vermut truly cared about Hermod, he should have prioritized killing the Demon King instead. What exactly was the content of the agreement they made back then? Who could replace Vermut to stop the war? That damned reclusive demon king. He was just a demon king. What was he putting on airs for? Sooner or later he'd kill him. Eugene had no intention of making any agreement. Why should the war be stopped? If a great war broke out, wouldn't it be better to kill him? If it wasn't Sena and Anis who interfered with his rebirth, but Vermut instead. Would he have such high expectations of me? 200 years ago, after Vermut's death, someone invaded this tomb. Sena sensed the anomaly and came here from Yarao and engaged in fierce battle with the intruder. Previously, leaves were found in Hermod's coffin. Those were leaves from the World Tree. As the faith of the elves, the World Tree's leaves allowed the holder to return to the elf forest anytime, anywhere. Did Sena use the World Tree's leaves in an emergency? If it was Vermut who fought fiercely with Sena here, then what was the reason for feigning death at all costs? But it could only be Vermut. Only he could secretly place the necklace in Reinhardt's treasury without anyone knowing. And there were Sena's words carved on the coffin. I hope someday we can meet in the world you long for. That certainly didn't mean meeting in heaven. Could it be that Vermut betrayed his companions? Eugene refused to believe that Vermut would attack Sena. He had to find out the truth, and he had to find Sena. When they first met, Hermod said, "Who are you? How dare you block my way?" Sena kept chattering, thinking Hermod was just a shabby vagrant. Anis also looked disgusted. Morin's intelligence hadn't been very high since then, so he could be ignored. Only Vermut was different. He seemed to have recognized Hermod and asked Hermod to become his companion. Hermod didn't mind, but insisted he had to be the leader of the team, so they decided to fight. Whoever won would be in charge. The result was obvious. Hermod was no match for Vermut at all, although he stood up again, refusing to give up, and charged at Vermut once more. The two fought from sunrise to sunset. Hermod never won once. He knew he was far behind Vermut, and didn't understand why Vermut would seek him as a companion. Vermut at that time was called the Warrior of Light. Countless people wanted to become his companion, but Vermut seemed to have chosen Hermod specifically. To kill the Demon King, he needed Hermod's power. He said, "Come with us, Hermod." That day, Anis drank down the holy water in one gulp, and could no longer suppress the primordial power within her. She loudly questioned Hermod, "Is there truly an omniscient and omnipotent God in this world? Why does he let her companions bleed? Why doesn't he illuminate the darkness of this world?" Hermod said, "You're drunk, Anis. Whether there's a god or not doesn't matter. We'll kill the demons ourselves. That guy probably thinks the same way. Since God cannot watch over this world, then we'll dispel the darkness ourselves." Anis said, "I didn't expect you could say such words." Hermod said, "It's only because I'm annoyed listening to your drunken ranting. If you can't handle it, don't drink. Hurry up and give me the liquor." Anis said, "This is holy water. I can't give it to someone with such lacking faith like you." Hermod said, "I've been the most faithful believer of the God of Light since childhood. Give it to me quickly." But Anis just wouldn't give it to him. Hogani, the holy land of light, where stood a statue of Anis in prayer. 200 years ago, after Anis prayed here, she began her pilgrimage. Sena's seclusion and Anis's pilgrimage didn't overlap in time at all. Anis should have visited Hermod's tomb, but didn't enter the tomb. Otherwise, she wouldn't have left the interior in such chaos. Could her disappearance also be related to Vermut? Until now, Eugene still had no clues. At this moment, the bearded man reminded him. How about meeting Commander Kira? This trip might have unexpected. This chubby guy was Commander Kira. Eugene had even groomed himself specially for this meeting. Commander Kira said, "Eugene Lionheart, why did you go to the desolate desert?" Eugene said, "I'm not sitting here to be interrogated by you." Commander Kira knew he couldn't interrogate Eugene. The relationship between Nahama and Hill wasn't good. If he openly interrogated Lionheart, it might cause disputes between the two countries. Those sorcerers who caused land desertification were all hiding deep in the desert. If Eugene had conflict with them, someone should have come to relay the message. So it seemed nothing major had happened. Understanding this, Commander Kira felt relieved all over. He claimed he had people follow Eugene to protect him. Maybe their behavior caused Eugene some slight misunderstanding. But no matter what, Eugene attacked them first. They were just forced to defend themselves. Hearing this, Eugene felt relieved. It seemed this fatty knew nothing about the tomb. The bronze statue, monument, and coffin had all been stuffed into the dark cloak by Eugene. As long as Amelia's side didn't talk, no one would know what happened there. Then there was no need to continue entangling with him. He'd make an appropriate settlement and then return to Lionheart. Eugene spoke. "Commander Kira, so you're admitting you had people follow me? You wouldn't want Lionheart to know about this, would you?" At this moment, the fatty realized this guy had come to extort him. He said, "Then how much money do I need to pay to ease our relationship that became awkward due to misunderstanding?" Eugene said, 500 million. Would that be too much trouble for you? A mere 500 million. Fatty Lucky didn't care at all. But he was very curious about what Eugene had seen in the desert. Eugene said, "Sand, of course. What else could there be in the desert besides sand?" Eugene said he would take the bearded man away, who had threatened him and must pay the price. Fatty Lucky had no objections. If Eugene wasn't satisfied, execution on the spot was also acceptable. The bearded man suddenly felt a chill over his head. His life was in danger. But Eugene wasn't that heartless. He just planned to have the bearded man go home to handle horse manure. Fatty Lucky said, "Whatever makes you happy." At this moment, a group of people were waiting at the teleportation gate, still cursing and swearing. wearing. Gone for 2.5 years, I really want to see how strong you've become, Eugene. Even the second wife had been waiting by the teleportation gate early. After 2.5 years, she still retained her charm. Still wealthy as always, but no longer so extravagant. After Lyde's incident, she had also come to terms with things. She didn't want to ruin her child's future because of her own desires. Now she didn't care whether Stein could become the family head or not. Therefore, she still hoped Eugene could return. On the contrary, Stein's expression was serious and conflicted. On one hand, he feared his brother had suffered outside. On the other hand, he was afraid his brother would return and directly become the family head. For the Reinhardt family, the family head must be the strongest person in the main family, although Eugene wasn't of main family bloodline. If Eugene wanted to become the family head, Stein feared he would choose to hand over the position willingly. The second wife felt that Stein had grown up. These matters could be decided by himself. If he really couldn't figure it out, he could wait for Eugene to arrive and have a good talk. Soon, Eugene finally passed through the teleportation gate. He didn't expect so many family members to welcome him. But when he saw the second wife, Eugene was stunned. No way, she came too? At this moment, Eugene's father Jahard instantly flew over and gave Eugene a direct hug. At his age, his tear ducts were still so active. But what was with this thick beard? It turned out Jahard had been hanging around with Big Cousin's father during this time. Who knew how much secret sauce he had consumed over the years? Looking at the graceful second wife nearby, Eugene hurriedly bowed and greeted her. The second wife said, "There's no need to be so formal between family members." At this moment, Eugene looked left and right but couldn't see where Stair was for the coming-of-age ceremony. She had gone to the Black Emissary's castle in advance. Unlike Reinhardt's bloodline ceremony, only children of the main family participated in the coming-of-age ceremony. Originally, Lyde should have held his coming-of-age ceremony long ago, but because he had contact with black magic, it never happened. Now, although the main family only had Stein, Steyer, and Eugene, they still wanted to make it grand. Of course, this was also the Elders' Council's idea. Maybe they had too much budget to spend. At this moment, a figure appeared behind Eugene. After seeing who it was, the second wife was stunned. Other people's children brought back girls when they returned home. Eugene was different. He brought back a bearded man. She hoped Eugene hadn't become strange during these 2 years outside. Eugene quickly introduced the bearded man's identity and handed him over to the little maid Tina to manage. Tina was also happy to do so. The bearded man's main job from now on would be cleaning horse manure. Other matters would be arranged by Tina. Tina would be his direct supervisor from now on. The bearded man never expected to fall to such a state. He was a desert warrior who split sandstorms and trampled sandworms. Someday he would take out his blade and fight for Eugene again. At this moment, only the two brothers remained on the scene. Stein felt he needed to have a good talk with Eugene. Then the two headed toward the main family residence. Who knew Stein would ask, "Who exactly are you?" This sudden question confused Eugene. Stein continued, "Are you really 19 years old like me?" Eugene said, "Of course not. I'm the reincarnation of Hermod Davis, a man destined to save the world." This time it was Stein who was confused. Eugene knew that even if he told the truth, Stein wouldn't believe it. It seemed that after years of not educating him, Stein had started to lose track of who was boss. This immediately awakened Stein's childhood memories. Sometimes Stein really felt powerless. He clearly trained desperately every day, and had even advanced his white flame style to 3 stars. But Eugene had actually cultivated to 4 stars. Actually, Stein's demands weren't that high. He just wanted to beat Eugene up, preferably until Eugene knelt and called him daddy. He worried about his brother suffering, but also feared his brother becoming the family head. At this moment, Stein's heart was full of conflict, but Eugene's face was written all over with refusal. Whoever wants to be family head can be. Only a fool would want to go to work. If you want me to be family head, you'd have to beat me first. If I could beat you, why would I let you be family head? Wouldn't that be crazy? So that was the logic? Stein said, "Are you stupid?" Eugene said, "Haven't seen you in a while. You've gotten cocky. If you're not convinced, let's duel." Stein knew his limits. The power gap between him and Eugene was too large. He'd definitely get crushed in a duel, but a simple sparring match was still possible, just right to test Eugene's skills. Eugene said, "Don't eat beforehand then, or you'll throw up." If he didn't know he couldn't win, Stein really wanted to punch Eugene twice. Then, under the amazed expressions of the servants, the two engaged in an intense duel, intense being one-sidedly referring to Stein. Eugene was very satisfied with his current strength. Having such vast magical power at this age was rare on the entire continent. On the contrary, Stein became more frustrated as he fought. Not only was his stamina consumed abnormally, but he also felt like he couldn't use his strength properly. Eugene seemed to be able to redirect his attacks at will. Each of Stein's moves was full of power. Then he'd dodge and weave, showing off his moves. But to the audience, it looked rather awkward. They couldn't believe Master Eugene was so terrifyingly strong. Even if they went up themselves, they'd be no match. Although Stein had greatly increased in strength during this time, he couldn't even make Eugene move his feet. The gap was really too large. Stein was very curious about Eugene's technique for redirecting attacks. Eugene said it was just ordinary blocking. But how could Stein believe that? Eugene clearly hadn't used Sword Aura, yet could easily redirect his attacks. It seemed there was also attack reflection, causing Stein to overconsume magical power. Stein said he wanted to learn such a powerful technique. Eugene said, "It seems our brotherly relationship is about to change. You actually want to take me as your master. Once a teacher, always a father." Stein forced himself to endure. After all, he really couldn't beat him. Eugene said, "That's a secret manual. There are too many people here with prying eyes. Follow me to find a secluded place and we'll talk." It wasn't realistic for Stein to surpass Eugene, but as long as he was strong enough to be worthy of Reinhardt's family head position, that would be fine. Discovering that Eugene really didn't want to be family head, Stein stopped being conflicted. He said, "Although your strength is decent, you really don't have the temperament of a family head." Eugene was speechless and stepped on his foot. Stein cried out in pain. "Are you still a child? Still stepping on toes?" Then Stein asked when Eugene could teach him that technique. Eugene said he was busy with myriad affairs and had no time. When he was free, he'd write it down and Stein could practice it himself. Stein was very annoyed by Eugene's perfunctory behavior, but again, he couldn't beat him. To the south of the Hill Empire lies the Urax Mountains. From 300 years ago until now, this had always been Reinhardt territory. The Black Emissary's castle sat atop Mount Ulrax, and at this moment, a round-table meeting was being held inside the castle. Family head Guyard had already received the message, knowing that Eugene had returned to the main family. A figure beside him said the timing was just right. Guyard actually didn't want Eugene to come to the Black Emissary's castle, but there was no choice. Guyard had broken precedent first. After all, never before had the main family adopted a child from a branch family, so a branch member becoming family head wasn't impossible either. The speaker was none other than the Council of Elders chairman, the immortal Dennis Reinhardt. Eugene had already proven his worth. Moreover, Carmen also highly recognized Eugene's potential, but the immortal still wanted to confirm personally. This coming-of-age ceremony was the perfect opportunity. He wanted to see if Eugene Reinhardt truly had unlimited potential. Reinhardt's coming-of-age ceremony would not only select the next family head, but also question why Eugene went to the desert. How could they let a lion they had painstakingly raised leave the pride alone? Eugene could have the right to choose, but the range of choices had to be the family's arrangements. Even if Eugene wanted to become family head, Guyard could give him the opportunity. At this time, Carmen said he won't want to be family head. Although they had only met once, Carmen could see that Eugene's ambitions lay elsewhere. Hearing this, the immortal showed a meaningful smile. Meanwhile, on the other side, the two brothers also received information to head to the Black Emissary's castle. Stair was currently at the Black Castle, so they could set off any time after preparing. The highly mobile Eugene immediately prepared to go. After all, finishing early meant vacation early, which meant he could find Sena early. The confused Stein could only passively follow Eugene. Stein had already read the cultivation manual Eugene wrote for him, but if he cultivated according to this method, Stein felt he'd die in the training ground within a few days. Actually, this was exactly how Eugene cultivated. As long as you didn't die from training, keep training. This way, if you really didn't die, you'd definitely become stronger. Hearing this, Stein was speechless. He said, "Do you want to listen to what you're saying?" This was the first time in family history that a coming-of-age ceremony was held at the Black Castle. Stein felt it was definitely because Eugene ran around everywhere, so the elders decided to call him over for a lecture. On the contrary, Stein, was different. He was about to become the family head. The elders would definitely reward him with the former Demon King's weapons, and these two weapons were currently at the Black Emissary's castle, held respectively by the immortal Denz and his grandson. But Stein felt the immortal should have retired long ago. Maybe this time he'd pass the magic spear to him. Thinking about it made him a little excited. The reason Eugene was so eager to go to the Black Castle was because somewhere there was hidden Vermut's tomb. He wanted to see if Vermut lay peacefully in that coffin. Maybe when opened, there'd be no corpse inside at all. After returning to his room, Eugene took out the Moonlight Sword. Although there was still no blade, every time he opened it, it absorbed large amounts of Eugene's magical power. The few fragments had already attached to the sword body. With Eugene's current strength, he still couldn't use it freely. Moreover, the fact that he possessed the Moonlight Sword couldn't be exposed. Whether Vermut had orchestrated all this, hopefully this time there would be answers. At this moment, Eugene suddenly remembered. Helmo's bronze statue and monument were still in his cloak. Could he give them to the family together? It was time to give the elders a little shock. When Eugene saw Stein's neat attire, those who didn't know might think he was going on a blind date. At this time, Stein also noticed Eugene's dark cloak and was very envious. The cloak not only had various convenient magic inscribed on it, but even had subspace magic attached. "Eugene, you're really damnable." Eugene said, "Even if you stare hard, I won't give it to you." Stein said, who was staring hard. "Shameless." Moments later, the two came to the teleportation location. Eugene, who had multiple teleportation experiences, took the lead. But after they passed through the teleportation gate, they discovered they were actually in midair. Eugene, with his considerable magical attainment, naturally didn't need to worry, but Stein couldn't handle it. He was already scared silly at this moment. Aerial descent. This should be the family testing their adaptability and not wanting to kill them, so it seemed Stein wouldn't die from the fall. Eugene decided not to care about him. He could search the forests along the way by himself. Seeing Eugene descend slowly and composedly, the glasses-wearing elder determined that must be 5-ring magic. Denez didn't expect Eugene's magic to be so terrifyingly powerful. He hurriedly asked the family head about Eugene's white flame-style attainment. The family head said, 3 stars before going to Yarao. Wrote last year saying he'd reached 4 stars. Hearing this, Dennis laughed heartily. Maybe a year from today, Eugene's level will be even higher. The old man beside him exclaimed it was impossible. No one had ever reached 5 stars before age 20. Carmen said, "Don't use your your shallow knowledge to judge a genius. Do you think everyone is like you? The old man said, Sister, are you looking down on me? Carmen said, Don't call me sister with that old face, disgusting. The old man said, Who's disgusting? At your age, still shamelessly maintaining your youth. Wake up, old woman, you're already in your 60s. Hearing this, Carmen gritted her teeth and bit her cigarette in half. At this moment, the old man realized the seriousness of the situation. That was a cigarette she'd held for 30 episodes without being willing to light. On the other side, seeing Eugene had landed safely, Dines quickly ordered his grandson to give Eugene some intensity. Family head Guyard wanted to stop him. He hoped to wait until the kids reached the castle before testing, but Dines had a different view. Actual combat testing was the best basis for judging strength. Seeing this, Guyard hoped Lyde could also come participate. Who knew this was opposed by Dines? Even though Lyde was the eldest son of the main family, the fact that he studied black magic was undeniable. He should spend the rest of his life staying at his maternal family and not come out to cause trouble. However, Eugene encountered goblins as soon as he landed. Eugene wasn't afraid at all and dealt with all of them. Mere local goblins dared to block his way. With Eugene's swordsmanship, he quickly relieved the forest's population pressure. Even Thanos would call him an expert. These should all be monsters the main family kept in the forest, but these weaklings shouldn't meet the testing standards. Suddenly, a terrifying giant beast emerged from the forest. Fortunately, Eugene jumped quickly and wasn't bitten. It was a flying dragon. But seeing the dragon rider, Eugene smiled. It was actually Stair. Eugene didn't expect her to launch a sneak attack. Having not seen her for a while, she dared to ride a dragon and ambush him. Stair was also confused at this moment. Eugene should not have been able to dodge. She said, Doesn't your head hurt? It turned out the entire forest was covered by a barrier. Everyone who entered would have their spirit affected. But Eugene only felt slightly dizzy the moment he entered, then adapted. After all, he has the soul who defeated the Demon King 300 years ago. He still had some ability. But Stair was very puzzled, because Stein on the other side had already been dominated by the barrier. His mind was now full of ghosts and spirits, fighting wits and courage with thin air, while Eugene, apart from being a bit silly, had no problems at all, which didn't seem quite right. It seemed they still had to fight. She wouldn't let Eugene reach the castle so easily. The two hadn't sparred in years. Who would win was still unknown. Although Eugene didn't expect to fight Stair as soon as they met, he wouldn't hold back.